listening to
the Thundercling podcast.
Just rippling abs.
How are we going to get fucking sponsored by these guys if we can't even get the name right?
Did you say you're doing wrestling moves?
Oh god, I'm bleeding.
Jason Kale was walking around on stilts. It's fucked up.
I'm looking for a drummer who will double as my driver.
My name is Dave,
And I'm Feedy.
and you are listening to the Thundercling
podcast. Heck yeah,
podcast.
episode 19, and we have it nailed to the T.
Man, we're starting to get pretty
We're
good.
getting pretty good,
Like,
guys.
we're way better than we used to be.
Yeah, man. Those guys, I don't even. Year ago, dude.
We were just babies.
If I could go back in time and see my 1 year ago stuff,
I would strangle.
Yeah, I would just slap myself.
If I went back and saw your 1 year old
Yeah.
self, I would.
Wait, my 1 year old self or?
Oh, wait,
when I was
1
a
year old.
baby?
Yeah, if I saw baby Feedy, I'd fucking do the world a favor, dog.
Oh my.
You know what I'd do?
You know that I admire the courage it takes.
I'd shake it. I'd just shake you for 5 days straight and see what happens. That's what I do.
Wow.
Wait, we're digressing.
We're digressing. Anyways. Shaking baby syndrome is no joke.
I know. I apologize for that fever dream I just had.
This episode was fantastic because
We had our first return guest.
we did. We had our first returning guest in the shape and human body of Jeremy Fullerton.
Yes, sir. Along with his glistening, gleaming,
Yeah.
bulging 8-pack.
Yeah, wasn't it weird when like Paul came in dressed like a nice guy and Jeremy showed up just bow tie,
No shirt. Yeah,
and
at all.
just flexing. Like I tried to shake his hand but for a minute he just stared at me and flexed.
And flexed his
Yeah.
belly muscles.
And as soon as I showed fear, he like relaxed. And
Yeah.
was like,
I thought that was a pretty tense moment. Maybe the
Yeah.
most tense moment we've ever
Yeah.
had. I thought.
dead silence. Paul just watched.
Well, Paul started weeping a little bit. Remember that? When he kind of put his head down and started gently crying, and then Jeremy put back on his shirt and took off his
Yeah.
bow tie. He's like, dude.
It was a very strange start to the pod, but I'm glad, but it worked out though.
It worked out
because-
that we had a really nice chat with him.
Yeah,
So the Paul we're talking about is Paul Robinson.
I know. I'm gonna be honest. That was a
kind of a
little bit of a
fanboy.
fanboy moment for me.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started climbing, the first movie that really sticks out in my mind was Paul Robinson and Daniel trying their respective hardest boulder projects in the world, like the game and Lucid Dreaming.
Yeah, man.
So to meet Paul in the flesh and get to know him after, you build up an idea of who these people are, and it's fun to actually meet them.
And they turn out to be like the nicest
Yes.
people, the nicest, like softest spoken people ever.
Super genuine, and it's also, you're just like, you're so good at rock climbing.
It was pretty cool. The part that struck, Paul tells some stories. He shares some stories that he's never shared anywhere before,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. We feel honored that he
Felt comfortable.
felt
doing that.
comfortable
Yeah.
enough to say that stuff. But on a second note, Paul was talking at one point in the podcast, which you'll hear because we're really good at redundancy.
Yeah.
He says, it was a crazy time around 2010 that any given day I could wake up and kind of like, I could be the best boulderer in the world. And just to hear sitting across a table from somebody who says that, you're just like, it doesn't compute. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
for us, the gap is so far.
it's like,
It's like
being LeBron James for a
me.
day.
For me, the equivalency would be like going into a gym in the Midwest and just being like, I could be the best boulderer in this tiny corner of this bouldering gym.
Yeah.
On any given day.
Do you really think you could? You think you could walk
No,
into the
that's-
gym
that
in
honestly-
Lawrence,
Honestly,
Kansas?
there's always this like hidden boss, dark horse of it lurking. So probably
who's just
not.
crushing?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think
Yeah.
I could be the best anywhere. Maybe does Antarctica have a gym like at McMurdo Station?
Oh yeah, they have some killers out
I
there.
could-
They just boulder on glacier rock.
Dude, I bet I would be the best there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's likely.
It's likely.
I've climbed V4 around those snow bunny bastards. Anyway, Jesus, let's get to the interview. This is a really long one, so I hope you guys stick around. It's good till the very, very end,
Yeah.
and we'll be back afterwards to say
Just say goodbye.
To say goodbye.
We just
so-
say goodbye to everybody.
Hey, stick around. Maybe have a cup of tea. We'll bring you some desserts and have a good time.
Serve you some fun and nice conversation. Goodbye. Bye.
Till then.
Down in the city where the wind patterns change, blowing around the buildings all tall and strange. Up the stairs to see my
And incredible.
That would be.
Yeah, which is what I think makes YouTube so valuable, because there's just, yeah.
How crazy is it too that there's this platform you can just put essentially unlimited content on, and like really high fidelity. I don't know. It's
For free,
for,
too.
for free.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, well, both platforms, Instagram and YouTube. I think they say every minute, 24 hours of footage gets uploaded.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
On the entire platform?
On YouTube.
Oh, my God.
Lord almighty.
No wonder
I mean,
you can just
it
go
could
down that
even be
wormhole.
more.
Yeah, no kidding.
But like, I mean, dude, it's physically impossible to watch it all, obviously.
oh, obviously, yeah.
yeah.
Thank God, though. Also, Jesus.
And what would you do when you're just like sitting there and nothing else to do on like a rainy day? You're just like, we're in
Yeah.
a hole.
I've been down those wormholes for
Oh, yeah.
hours on
Of
YouTube.
course, yeah.
Just like, oh gosh.
From climbing to music to like some lecture, back to
yeah.
climbing, some nude things.
Oh. Oh boy.
No big deal. So how'd you guys meet each other? How did you? You're from Pennsylvania.
New
No,
Jersey.
we're from like
That's
the same
okay.
hometown essentially.
Yeah.
Did you
which is
guys know
totally
each other
crazy.
back in the
No.
day?
No, not really.
I knew of Paul once in a while because he was just Paul Robinson. And he would come into the gym and I'd be like, oh, there's Paul.
There's Paul.
It's like, hey, dude. I remember one time actually, one of the first times, you measured my ape index.
Whoa.
And you measured it wrong.
Oh.
And I found out like 2 weeks ago that you've measured it wrong my whole entire life. I thought it was 0. But
He
I actually,
sandbagged you.
yeah, I actually have 3/4 of an inch.
Well, he was trying to make you like try hard.
You're
Yeah, he's
younger
like,
though, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get hazed by the older guy.
Yeah, it looks like
How old are you
-1.
now?
31.
31. I'm 28. Yeah. So
3
3
had
years.
to get some hazing.
Yeah, back then that's
Negative.
a big age
I told him it
difference.
was -6.
You'll never make a kid.
Loser. No, and then I moved out here 6 years ago, and then we just kind of kept crossing paths, and then we're like, oh, we should hang out, and then I would consider you one of my better friends here.
Thanks,
Whoa, are we having a
Jeremiah.
heart to heart?
Yeah, we're
At
having a
least.
heart-to-heart.
No, but honestly,
No,
I would
no, of
consider
course.
Paul like my good friend. Like we
Aren't
hang
you,
out.
are you gonna
other
reciprocate?
Yeah, of course, Jeremy's my good friend.
Than, why aren't you looking at
Yeah,
me?
look
at
It was
Well,
starting to
because
get
I
pretty
felt like I
stressful.
had to tell him because, I mean, Jeremy knows.
I know.
Um,
No, I mean like before this, we were just hanging out and like just watching videos and stuff, and like I consider Paul like there's like climbing, just strictly climbing friends, but there's also friends outside of climbing that like him and I will just like be like, oh, I'm like dealing with this issue or dealing with this girl right now, and like, what do you think about this, Paul? And he's always giving me like good advice that I don't realize is good until 6 months later. I was like, hey,
and then I'm like, I told you.
I told you she was crazy. And I was like, yep, thanks, Paul.
I should start recording our conversations so I can play them back 6 months later.
Exactly.
Jeremy, when will you learn?
Yeah. That's what I'm going to use my new audio recorder for.
Why'd you get this audio recorder? Well, to teach a friend a lesson.
That's right. Many lessons.
Many lessons. No,
So
but-
how'd you start climbing? I mean, I kind of know. You started at a birthday party
Yep.
when like you were an 11-year-old?
10-year-old. Yeah. At the same gym that Jeremy grew up at. But,
it was vertical reality?
Yeah, it was called vertical reality back then. So wait, what year did you, or how old were you when you started climbing?
17.
So 11 years ago.
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I started in like 97 then. I know. And so this gym had just, I think, as far as I know, the gym had more or less just been built. And there was...
It's an early gym.
Yeah, a very early a gym.
One of the first, I think.
Especially in the East Coast. Yeah, absolutely. And so it was built because there was 2 guys that they climbed in the gunks on the weekend. That was kind of like our closest, like, good crag kind of thing. Because boulder, I mean, again, like in 97, obviously people were bouldering. Like, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't what it is today.
The explosion
Obviously.
was like 3 years away.
Yeah. So these guys built this gym for kind of like training for the gunks and I don't know, kind of just like they wanted a place that they could climb at during the week when they had to work, and they were like, oh, we're gonna build this gym, and then on the weekends we'll go and we'll go trad climbing in the gunks. And so a friend of mine up the street, his parents, not really sure how, but they decided that they found out about this place, and they're like, oh, we're gonna have our kid's birthday party there. And then the rest is really history. I mean, I loved it. Like from day one, I was like, this is amazing.
Really?
And
From
like
that first time?
yeah, I mean, not that I had like the foresight to even like understand it, because
Right.
to me, like, you know, when you're 10 and you're in New Jersey and it's 1997, I mean, rock climbing is like, you know, before that day, I probably thought of rock climbing as climbing Mount Everest, right? And I guarantee
Yes.
like everyone else thought of it as that way too.
For sure.
So this was kind of like, you know, I wish I could go back to that day to like kind of rethink
Yeah.
it through, you know, and like hear my thoughts, because like, you know, it was like, well, this is so wild. Like, I'm sure I was thinking like, whoa, rock climbing, you know?
I know. I remember when I started climbing just a year after you in '98, and I was in Iowa.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you said you were a climber, they'd be like, "Whoa, are you gonna go to like? Did you read John Krakauer's book Into Thin Air? Are you going to
and
the
how old were
Himalaya?"
you then?
Oh, I'm old, man. I was 25 when I started.
Yeah, but still
climbing.
super young, you know. I mean, in
young
that
enough.
respect.
I wish to God I would have started at like 13.
Yeah. Well, then climbing would have been even more like almost like irrelevant in so many
Oh my
ways.
God.
I was about to say, was it even relevant when you, let's just say you started at 13? So that would have been like,
I
what,
would have had
1989
9 or something like that.
Yeah, it was
I
like
can't
just
even-
becoming like an actual activity. I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, I know a couple old schoolers that like are like 60s, 70s now that like started when they were really young. I mean, look at like
yeah.
John Sherman or something.
yeah, true.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
for like Peter Beal, just locally,
Yeah,
all those
yeah,
guys started
absolutely.
back then. But for somebody in Iowa,
Yeah.
like,
No, of
can't
course.
imagine wearing spandex, like
Yeah.
bright yellow spandex.
Yeah.
When I was,
Do you have a photo of that?
I actually have my old spandex
Yeah, he still
in
has the
the,
outfit, yeah.
Can I
in the
nice.
bedroom.
Can I wear it?
Yeah, later.
Would you like to wear them for this whole interview?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to take them off because I got them underneath.
Pause podcast.
It's funny you say that climbing was like climbing Mount Everest, and now I feel like when a rando asks about climbing, they're like, "Oh, do you like free climb, like free solo?"
Yeah.
Like that's become
Like that's
the new
Yeah.
norm.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, at least it's getting closer.
It is getting closer.
It's much closer than like Everest
Yes.
to like Alex
'cause
Honnold
now they
doing
now
free
they
solo.
know it's like actually like
Yeah.
climbing a rock.
There's technique and everything. But I mean, you know, thinking back too, it's so funny because I mean I was 10, you know, like
yeah.
and so then I started to get into it, and I was like, oh wow, like there's like chalk bags and climbing shoes and these things, and like it was this full learning process because there was no guidance, right? And so like I would go to school and people would be like, well, like what are you like what
Why'd you quit the
you
baseball
know?
team?
Yeah, exactly. Why? What are you doing? And then like my dad and I built this climbing wall in my garage that was like a little 45 wall, and yeah, I mean people had no idea. They were like, this is so weird.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, because even if I was like, oh, like, would you like to try climbing? They're like, no.
Yeah,
You
but
know?
it just
Because-
wasn't a part of the zeitgeist at all.
No, because now it's like, I mean, if you went, I bet if you did like if you went to Boulder High and you asked every kid, have you tried indoor or outdoor rock climbing? 90% would probably
Yeah.
say yes. I mean, that's obviously a complete guess.
I
But,
would
like,
guess it too. The jocks, everybody.
everyone's tried it. Everyone has tried climbing at this point. Like, you know, maybe obviously the older generations have not, but like, you know, everyone that's like now going through their teenage years has tried climbing. And so for me, it was like I was the only person, you know, and then all my like pals in school, like they, you know, they would entertain it and they'd go to the gym with me once every couple months or whatever, like just because like they thought it was fun as well. But it was like the fact that I was like actually like doing this on a almost daily basis, that I was then like going and doing competitions and climbing outside and traveling for this thing that people wouldn't even do if it was like in their backyard. It was like very
So
weird.
weird.
Yeah, and so like basically my entire childhood going through school, like I mean, it was like, it wasn't like people were like making fun of me for it, but it was, people were just, they didn't understand.
Like,
There's
how can
Paul
he
the
be
rock climber.
How can he be so passionate about this thing? Did it appeal to you at all? By the way, it's so hard to talk about this when you start at 10 years old.
Yeah.
Because I can't be like, so
Yeah.
when you were 10, you know, we can't have revisionist
Analyze it.
history here.
Yeah.
But did it appeal to you in those early years because there were no coaches, there was nobody telling you what to do, or was that ever, it was just the movement that appealed to you?
Well, because, I mean, there were no coaches, right? So, I mean, you know, maybe in like the BRC, like, so, you know, you can take two people that have kind of like come up to become like professional athletes, right? You know, so like if you take myself and then you take Daniel, who grew up in Colorado and started climbing when he was like 6 or something like that, and had a coach from day one. You know, I mean, he had Justin Chong at the BRC, like kind of guiding him to be like, okay, this is like a competition. This is outdoor rock climbing. This is this. Like, I don't know how I got from day one to like where I am, because there was like no guidance, you know?
Yes.
It just doesn't, you know, the stars aligned, I
Yeah.
guess is kind of the best way to describe it, because I don't know. I mean, the internet obviously wasn't what it was. It wasn't like
No
I was
way.
like on Google searching
Google
things.
didn't exist,
Yeah,
I don't
think
think.
99, I think
Yeah,
Google
really?
kind of existed. I think is when it came out. So it's like, so I don't know. I don't really know how one step came to another. I think that the guys that started the gym, maybe they must have told my dad that there were competitions. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure, but like kind of going back, like I remember when I started it, I didn't really understand the whole concept of like difficulties and stuff like that. So I would go to the gym and I would just try and make things more difficult. So like I would climb a route so many times that then I would blindfold myself and then try and climb the route blindfolded.
Because that's how they get harder.
Yeah. I mean, just like dumb things like that, because literally there was no one.
Yeah.
I mean, like my dad was super supportive, but like he never
He
climbed.
doesn't know shit.
Yeah,
about
exactly.
climbing.
So it was like he learned to belay, and he was like, well, I'll belay at the gym type of thing. And then
put on the blindfold for the harder routes.
yeah, exactly. I was like, all right, well, I did this one 10 times, so let me just put the blindfold on and see if I can do it now.
Did they have like grades on the routes back then, or was it just like a spray
Yeah,
wall?
I'm sure they did. And I think they were like taped and stuff.
Okay.
I can just like kind of like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's fuzzy.
You know, like, yeah, it's very fuzzy. Like you think back and you're like, I remember climbing blindfolded. I remember it was like over a year
wild.
until I got my first pair of shoes. I just used rental shoes.
Really?
Yeah. Like I had a chalk bag. I remember like that was like I loved it. I had a
Yeah.
chalk bag and I had a chalk ball. It was a
Do you
bison.
still have it? The chalk
No,
bag?
no.
What was the
But
chalk bag?
It was a bison chalk ball and a bison chalk bag, and it was like a little combo kit.
Whoa.
It came with the chalk ball.
Wow.
Shouts to Bison.
Ah.
The
Chalk-
chalk, the
Competition
ball,
Chuck.
The chalk ball was a bison figure?
No,
Or
no,
what?
no, no.
No,
Dude,
bison
is this a
chalk.
company?
Oh.
The company bison.
I didn't know that
I
they
don't
made
know
chalk
if
bags
they're.
anymore.
I don't know if they're much around anymore. Are they?
They're
No idea.
When
I
I
know
moved to
there's bison
Colorado, I
chalk.
remember people coming up to me all the time like, "I'm sponsored," and I'm like, "Oh, cool. Who are you sponsored by?" And like, fucking every person was like, "Bison." It's like, wow.
Isn't that really soft,
Yeah.
like weird,
It's-
flowery
it's
chalk?
like flour.
Yes.
Once you get used to it, that's pretty.
Someone's like dipping my chalk. I'm like, ugh. is that
I
bison, dude?"
hated like whenever anybody would say I'm sponsored by Bison, I'd just be like, "You must suck, dude," because that chalk is terrible.
Dang.
It's like powdered sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It does not feel good at all.
So Paul, like, did you get picked to climbing like pretty good, or did you like take a while to improve, or what was your progression like as a new climber? Like, what point were you like, I'm actually like, maybe kind of good at this whole climbing thing?
It wasn't very quick. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
blindfolded.
Yeah, because I mean, it was this learning process,
Yeah.
because there was no one to be like, okay, well, like if you do a bunch of pull-ups and you like work on like matching your feet on small footholds, like you'll get better, like it was literally just like, all right, here goes. But
This
We had
happened.
to have it.
My dog. That's not going to be the last time.
Yeah, so I guess I don't necessarily know the chain of events per se, but I started to do some junior competitions. That was kind of like my introduction to actually seeing other kids.
This is ABS time.
No. ABS hadn't even been invented yet.
That was like 2000.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So originally it was EBS, which is Eastern Bouldering Series, that's kind of cool information. This is prior to that. This is JCCA, which is Junior Competition Climbing Association, which now it's gone through a bunch of
Never even
names.
heard of that.
But it's now obviously USA Climbing that we all know. But so that was the original name for it. And so, I mean, this is, because at the gym at this point, it was adults who would go to the gym because they were like going to the gunks or just like enjoying a workout or whatever, if they wanted to go climb. And so then myself, and like I started to do these youth comps, and like I did okay. But again, like, I mean, the competition wasn't like obviously anything like it is today.
Yeah,
Right.
Savage.
But like, so I did well, and like, it wasn't really that difficult to make it to the national because there just weren't that many kids at this point. I mean, this is the late 90s or early 2000s. So I remember I made the nationals, and like, I did okay, but like I was always in the age group where I was competing against, because of my birthday, because it was always based upon birthdays and everything like that. So I always had to compete against like a year older kids. And also too, like, I mean, I am very skinny now, but like as a kid, I was very, very skinny. And so like, I just hadn't grown muscle yet. I hadn't gone through puberty and everything like that. So kind of what I attribute to my getting decent at climbing was that I had to get technique because I didn't have any strength. And so then these two kids as well from like my area, they started climbing and they got really into it, and they were a bit older than me, and they were very strong. Like, but they didn't have like this good of technique, but they were very strong. And so they started climbing at that gym, and that was kind of like a catalyst for me of like, oh wow, like these people are like, these kids are strong. Like I want to like try and do the climbs that they're doing, but like obviously like campusing was like out of the question, or like holding slopers was like out of the question. So I had to figure out ways, it was like, okay, I can't cut my feet. I can't do anything that these guys are doing. Like I remember one of them, do you guys remember the boss hold? The pusher boss?
Yes.
So one of them could like hang the boss with one arm.
Damn.
And I was like, man, like this is sick. And so, so I mean, basically like it was like, I'm a very competitive person. I've always have been. Like if someone's better than me at something, I want to be better than them. And so I was like, they got really strong really quickly. And so all of a sudden I felt like, oh man, like these guys are better than me. And I was like, in my mind, like, I couldn't stand it. Like, that's just like, I cannot. And I've always been this way, which is what I think has helped me to get to where I am today, is I just like, if someone gets better than me at something, like I want to get better than them. And so I'm
going to go get that dog.
Okay. God, man. We'll maybe try to cut that out.
no,
Literally every
I think
time.
that's going to be your bread and butter of the podcast.
Yeah. Yep. Yuki's actually the third co-host.
Exactly.
Subtle. Very subtle.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to get better.
So I wanted to get better. And so I just, I was climbing constantly, and obviously I wasn't as strong, like I was saying. So I was just bettering my technique. And like, then they were climbing up in the gunks, because at this point, like early 2000s, 2001 to like 2004-ish, even before that, like 2000 to 2003, they were climbing up in the gunks, but then bouldering was kind of like becoming cool
Like
at this
post
point.
mandala and post like dosage one.
Yeah, exactly.
is when it
Exactly. That I've got a funny story about climbing videos. I'll tell that one next.
Okay.
So anyway, so they were climbing in the gunks and I was like, oh, I want to do this. So then like I would start going to the gunks on the weekend and I was like, okay, this is I felt like climbing outside worked a lot better for me because in the gym, we all know it's so much more powerful.
Yeah.
So outside,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I can like grab these really small holds that other people can't grab.
They wouldn't have
because-
tape on them at the gym. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're not
yeah.
restricted.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh, okay, this is really cool. And I liked climbing outside and I liked being outside and going to the gunks. Like, felt really special. And I was like, wow, this is this whole other kind of part of climbing that's like amazing. And so then again, like I don't really know how this all happened, but I started to find out about other places, Waco, and I guess through videos really would probably
Just when they were like,
like the dosages and all
Yeah.
that type of stuff and so so I started to climb outside more and so I really started to get into bouldering because that's what these two kids were into and that's kind of like I felt like it's just what I really enjoyed to do. It's what they enjoyed to do. It kind of just made sense that like that's what I would get into.
the
And
videos had anything to do with it?
yeah, and I'm sure like obviously watching Chris Sharma do the mandala and like watching Free Waco and yeah, and I mean those guys. I mean like Dave and Chris like being in those videos. I mean those were like my heroes growing up.
Yeah.
So like I'd watch that and then like I mean Free Waco. So I mean the funny video story is super simple, but I got Free Waco for Christmas one year.
Sick.
I was so stoked. I watched it, saw Chris Sharma sending all these things, thought to myself like, oh, I'll try bouldering. I bet I could do a V8.
Yeah.
That was your goal.
No, that's just like what I thought I'd go to the
okay.
gym and just do.
Yes.
Oh, just do it like
Yeah.
apropos of nothing else. Like I can climb V8.
And so like I went to the gym and I started because like at this point now I think they had just added this like a little bouldering area to that gym. They one in New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, so it had like this small bouldering area, and there was a climb, and it was like a V with like an O and then a line through it, and I was like, oh, I guess that's an 8.
Looks
Looks
like
like
an
a weird 8. And so I did it, and I was like, oh, that was easy. And then I come down, and it was V0 minus.
Oh. You're like,
so-
this V8 shit is easy,
I
man.
know. And so that's like, so that was my intro to bouldering.
Free
So-
Waco is my favorite climbing video
No,
of
Free
all
Waco
time.
is amazing. And so, so then I learned about that. And then, like I said, I was going to these competitions, doing the nationals, and I was meeting like-minded kids. And then...
Who were some of your contemporaries back then? And was that like the Ethan Pringle
Yeah,
days?
Ethan was in my category, but he was a year older. So that's kind of
Okay.
what I was saying. So, like, he would always win. Like,
Yeah,
he was
he
like,
was a
he always
stud
won
back then.
at nationals. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, like, but then, like, 1 year below me was John Cardwell, Daniel.
Lord, stacked.
Yeah, exactly. So for whatever reason, like, I don't know, Ethan seemed like too cool or something. I don't know. He just
Kind
seemed
of
like a lot
intimidating
older
guy.
and like cooler or whatever. And like, now going forward 20 years, like Ethan's awesome and like whatever. But at the time I felt like, I don't know, in isolation, I would like talk to Daniel and talk to John, and Daniel and John were already friends at this point because Daniel is from Colorado and John from New Mexico. So like they would see each other at the comps. And so then I made friends with them. And then I remember, I would be 2002-ish maybe. I remember Daniel was like, yeah, we're going to go to Waco. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah.
Yes.
And so like, I remember like I flew to Colorado.
What are you, like 17 at this time?
No. This
16?
would have been, like 15 maybe.
Wow. Let's go to Waco as a
Yeah.
15-year-old.
Yeah. No, I was like, this sounds awesome. And so like I went to Waco with them. And at this point it was, I mean, Daniel was like leagues ahead, right? I remember that trip he did Crown of Aragorn, and he was like,
Wow.
he was like 14.
Jesus.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, because at this point, like I had then like the 2 kids at the gym, like I was kind of like at that point where I was getting muscle, and I was like, oh wow, like I was like out climbing them now, and I was like, okay, well, like I'm doing the hard stuff that they're not doing in the gunks, but then I like went on this trip, and I was like, oh my gosh, like here's another person that like is like a step above what I have even fathomed. Because at this point, you know, like none of those trad climbers or people that were climbing at that gym were even like coming remotely close.
No,
to,
your
like,
horizons are just like expanding every single day.
Yeah, exactly. And so like those kids, they were older than I was. So they were, you know, they were setting boulder problems at the gym and everything like that. And so we were climbing on them. But then as soon as I saw like this, I was like, whoa, you know, like this was kind of like this whole new world where it was people my age that were climbing super hard. Because at this point, I feel like my hardest climb was maybe V11, V10, V11. So
What
like
a
to see someone
14-year-old only climbing V11. Loser.
2000, I put up that video the other day. So it's 2003 is when I did my first V11. Yep. So
Wow.
that was so, but yeah, in that time period, you know, so it's like in that time period. So then I'm seeing what Daniel's doing. And like at that point, that's kind of like when he made his like, wow, this kid is going to be one of the best in the world.
I remember those days.
And so, you know, he did Crown, and then I remember he came back to Colorado and like he put up Echelay and did Centaur and like all of this like basically around 15 years old. And so I mean at that point I was like, okay, well, if I want to be as good as him, I need to live in Colorado.
Yeah.
Like that was like kind of like my thought process is like I feel like I'm very held back.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, like
You are.
yeah, I was. Absolutely. I mean, there was no real progression that I could make in being in New Jersey anymore. So graduated high school, and then I moved to Boulder at 18. And then, and then from that point forward, I mean, it was like I was able to train with him, with the other really strong climbers at the time. And like a lot of those guys, I mean, some of them you don't even see anymore. But
Yeah.
I mean, you know, people like Luke Parody, and then like Dave would be in and out of Boulder, like traveling, and I'd get to see him climbing at that point. I mean, you know, Dave and Chris were obviously still like people that were the forefront of what hard rock climbing was. I mean,
That was their
heyday.
age.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I
exactly.
mean, they were doing hard boulders. They were in every single movie.
Yep.
They were doing hard routes. And so, you know, Dave would come in and like, I'd get to see him climb. And then, I mean, kind of like from 16 to 18, I was coming here to climb with Daniel in the summer and go to Rocky Mountain National Park. And so I was seeing nothing but sunshine, and I saw like the Centaur and like the Jorge's and Sunspot and like all these things like, and so like, I was like, oh wow, like I want to do all these things. So like,
just mind blowing for
Yeah.
a kid from the East Coast. Just
No,
to be like,
of
oh
course.
My God,
Yeah.
this is what bouldering looks like.
yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
God.
And to like feel the holds and like be able to climb on these climbs. And then kind of like I was spending as much time as I possibly could, not in New Jersey, obviously, like throughout my high school years. Like on spring break, it was like, okay, I'm going to go to Bishop, and like, and then that's like really when I started to like get noticed as a climber. Like it was like, I think one of my last years in high school, like I did the Swarm and the Mandala Sit in a day. And then,
Oh my God, that's a nice day.
yeah, a great day.
That's just a
Yeah.
great day.
And then I moved to Colorado, and like I'd climbed a lot in the park, but like right when I moved to Colorado, like 2 months earlier, Daniel had done Jade, called it V15. I moved to Colorado, and then I did the second ascent of
Yeah.
Jade. And then it was like from that point forward, it was like Daniel and I were like boom, boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom.
and you guys were in progression.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
exactly. And so like, you know, and then, you know, he put up the game and then I put up Lucid Dreaming.
Yeah.
And then like and then back then too in the competitions, like most of the time he would win, but like there were a couple times where like I beat him and stuff like that, which like I was like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
you know, and that was like for me, like I've said, like, you know, I'm a very competitive person when it comes to like what I do. And if I actually put my mind to it, like I just want to do the best that I possibly can. And so that's kind of what it was. So like, as long as I had someone that I felt like I was within like an arm's reach of, that was like huge for me.
That was your carrot.
Yeah, exactly. That was the carrot. Because, you know, I mean, obviously, like, if I was to start another sport, and, like, you see LeBron or something like that, like, obviously, it's like, you know, it's like, it's so unfathomable that, like, you just can't even picture it. But at that point, when I was, like, 20 years old, it was like I could be the best. Like there was like that carrot where I was like, right now on any given day, like maybe I am like, there was a point where I could have been like on any given day, like I could have been the best like in the world in for bouldering. And
that is crazy. You just said like, it's like LeBron. It's hard to think about, but it isn't hard to think about. It's directly relatable. Mm-hmm. But I mean, what's that feeling like when you're a kid? Is there a struggle with ego or anything with, or is it just fascinating?
I think always my competition has always been with myself, because, and I think that's obvious. That's been kind of my way of never really having an ego, because if I did become the best or I was close to the best or whatever it was because I was doing it for me. It wasn't like I was trying. I didn't want to like do something before Daniel because it's going to make me feel better and I'm going to be able to brag about it. It was just like, if I do it before someone or I'm climbing better than someone at the gym that day, it was kind of like self-fulfilling, like a pat on my own back.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I felt about it.
Reflective of your hard work.
Yeah, exactly. Which is that's just how I've always thought about like anything I've put hard work into. It's never because I want to brag. It's just because I put the hard work in and I'm happy for what I've done.
Yeah. God, it's just mind-boggling to talk to you and know that you've had that experience of like Tuesday, January 23rd of 2003. I was the best boulderer on the planet. I mean, really, that's fucking wild to have that feeling and to like not have any ego about it. I think it would be difficult a little bit. What about you? What's your ego like, Jeremy? No, I was going to say, what drove you? Were you, or are you competitive in the same vein? Like, I wonder if most top tier climbers are like, the competition is a major driver.
I think it's very similar to Paul, and maybe not so much like as like if I like see someone do something in the gym or something and I do it before them, I don't have that sensation of just like, oh, I'm climbing better and like whatever like that. I'm just like, oh, cool, you succeeded and I want to succeed too. I've never been a competitive person. I've been in like competitive sports throughout my life, and like I would always like have this weird feeling every time that I would do like track or baseball or anything. I'm just like, oh, we beat you and you all look sad, but like, sorry, you know, like we were just better that day. And it's just like, it's an interesting feeling. But yeah, the whole ego thing. One thing I wanted to touch on, what I thought was interesting was when Paul was like, I need to just get out of New Jersey, because I had that very similar sensation, and obviously from the same place. It's like, you know, he mentioned the Gunks, and there's a couple other bouldering places that we would go to and frequent, but like, yeah, you just feel like you're just like getting held back. You're getting held back, and then like you just move to like Colorado, like I did, like Paul did, like many other people do that want to take climbing a little bit more seriously. And then all of a sudden you're just like surrounded with these people. Yeah. And I think I've mentioned it with you guys before, but you're just like, you're surrounded by these people, and it's like almost like going to an Ivy League school or something where it's just like, you're just like,
you're pulled up.
And like to physically see something done in person is just like a weird sensation to me. And like when nowadays I'm climbing with Paul and like some of these other top tiered athletes, and it's just like you see them do the moves and you're like, oh wow, like how'd you do that? And they're like almost there to like help you coach through.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, you know, Paul's an awesome friend, but he's also like a good coach and a mentor in a lot of ways, because he's just like, oh well, like I did this move like this subtleness of like, you know, however many years you've been climbing for, like really shows, and like he can explain it really, really well to me. And it just like, it's hard for me to like just look at a video and be like, oh, they twisted their foot like that.
Such a disconnect. When you see it in real life,
Yeah.
it's like possibility flowers
Yeah.
inside of you. You're like, ah,
Yeah.
a real human I can touch
Yeah.
right now
Uh-huh.
just did that.
And it's an interesting sensation.
Sorry.
Feedy
It's
just
a-
touched me,
it's
but
just-
I've never climbed anything hard. So
But it's also an interesting sensation when like you do meet people like Paul, and again we're friends at this point, or like some of these top tiered athletes where you're just like, you see them trip or you see them drink water or something, you're like, oh, that's like a normal person too.
yeah,
And you're just like, oh, like he's a normal person, I'm a normal person, I can do that too. And it
Mhm.
kind of opens up that door, especially once you kind of like hang
So
out
true.
with these guys and you're just like, oh, you're just a normal person. Like I just saw you trip up the stairs like, coming up this way. And just like,
Exactly.
oh, you know, it's just interesting, you know.
yeah, it's a funny thing that
Yeah.
climbing doesn't spawn many like divas.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I have a feeling like if you did meet LeBron James, you'd be like,
That's
you're
a
not a
diva.
fucking normal person. Like you are.
That's
like a
what
superstar.
hundreds of millions of dollars does to you.
Yeah.
exactly.
Superstar
That's what we don't
status.
have in climbing.
Yeah, man, we need to work on that.
yeah.
We're working
Maybe
on it.
not though.
Yeah.
100 million.
Yeah.
Maybe just $1 million here and
Yeah.
there.
I'd take a mill.
Maybe get you guys some Honold money.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. But I mean, but again, you know, I saw him at the gym the other day and he's just like
normal-
keeps it mellow.
Yeah.
Keeps
Yeah.
it real.
I mean,
and-
he's a totally. I mean, as normal as Alex Honnold can be. He's
Yeah, of course.
Because he's a unique guy, but he's totally just a normal
Yeah.
dude with
Yeah.
something broken in
Oh
his
yeah.
head.
No, I mean,
Something's going on
Yes.
up there.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but something. So you move to Boulder and you start school. And one of the interesting things that I was thinking, we were just talking about athletics. So college athletes can't be pro. It's like a law, right?
Yeah.
If you're playing baseball, you can't be a professional baseball player. You have to give up your amateur
Yeah.
status.
Yeah.
You can still be in college.
Yeah.
But you were a professional athlete and a college student at the same time.
it's true.
Like, how is that juggling act?
Well,
And
well,
were you bitter
well,
about
no,
going to college too?
Well, a couple things. One, what's kind of funny is that at this point, colleges didn't have climbing teams,
Yeah.
so that was like kind of irrelevant, right?
Yeah, right,
you know,
right.
so, but it was tough in a lot of ways, but at the end of the day, I'm definitely glad I did it. I think
Were you glad at the time?
No,
Or
no,
were you
no,
rebelling
no,
against
no,
it?
no, no. At the time, I remember I told my parents that I was going to move to Colorado, and that I was not going to go to school, even though I'd already gotten into CU, and they were like livid with me.
Really?
Oh, livid. They were like, you can go to CU and we'll help you financially, because at this point I wasn't really making money from climbing, so it was like I had nothing. I would have had to get a job. And or you can move out of the house at 18 and you're good to go.
Do whatever you want.
And so yeah, exactly. Which is
Yeah.
but like, you know, obviously it was very aired toward
But they were also like, but you're not going to do that. You're
Yeah.
going to go to college.
exactly, which is what I did. And at the time it was tough because that was right around the time that Daniel was graduating from high school as well.
Yeah.
So it was like, boom, okay, I'm graduated, I'm going to Switzerland, I'm going to Font, I'm going to Rocklands. Like, there was no sense of time, there was no sense of like a schedule or whatever. Straight from
Academic responsibility.
yeah, responsibility really, besides just going climbing. And so
Oh, God.
no, I know.
Still my beating heart. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and so at that point too, I mean, he had because this is prior to doing Jade, prior to like a lot of this stuff, this was that decision making time when it was like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? So like, you know, he had a career in climbing.
Yeah.
At this point, like I don't know how much he was making, but you know, I imagine he was making enough that he could live on the cheap and be able to travel a little bit. And so I was not at that point. So thankfully I made the smart decision and kind of like took my parents' guidance.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
Did you feel like lost on an island a bit? To lose that, or maybe to be saddled with responsibility when all of your other friends are just like gaining their wings and flying away from the nest?
I mean,
and
at
you're
that
like,
point,
I gotta go to fucking Art 101.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, there was not a single person. Okay, there was one person that I would climb with who was going to school. Everyone else was.
Who is that? Let's give him a shout out.
That was Ben Safety.
Ben.
Shout out, Ben.
Do you know Ben?
No, I just.
Oh.
No, he's got to give him a shout out.
No. Ben was like doing his master's degree in some physics or something crazy like that. And so, besides that, it was like everyone else. And what I've also seen too, which is really interesting, is that the females in our sport tend to go the like university college path, but then the males never do.
Yeah.
And so I kind of felt like
let's dig into that a little bit. Why do you think that is?
they're smarter than us.
That is the correct answer.
That is a very good answer. And we mean it. We absolutely mean
I
it.
totally agree with
Yeah.
you.
And
They
that's
are
not
more
to say
mature.
that, like, you know, obviously, like, there's a lot of people that come out of college that, like, are massively in debt, and
Yeah.
it wasn't the right decision for them to make. And so, yeah, so I mean, in a lot of ways, like, sure, I think it was good for me to go because it kind of allowed me to spread my wings a little bit and still have like a little bit of financial support from my parents in that regard. That was huge because, I mean, who knows? I mean, like, I would have had to work a 9-to-5 job. So at the same time, like, I would have moved here and I probably would have had less time. And so,
Right, exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
so it kind of felt like a blessing in a lot of ways. Like, yes, I was jealous. Like, I was like, wow, like, I would for sure, like, I'd love to go to Switzerland to go climbing for 2 months. Like, that would have been amazing. But what it also did was it allowed me to train in an environment that was very conducive to me getting stronger.
Mm-hmm.
This was during a time period when competition climbing was, wasn't like parkour.
Yeah.
You know, it was actually like
climbing.
it. You know, if you climbed well outside, you could actually still do well in a competition type of thing.
Yeah, a hard climb was like
they
no
would-
more greener grasses.
Yeah, and they would they would set that like at a comp, and so, you know, and the thing is Colorado. Yes, I'd been here for maybe 2 or 3 week trips in the past, but like it was such a new place.
It's endless.
Yeah, it was endless, and so it really wasn't that big of a deal. And my parents did not force me to take 18 credits at a time or anything like that. Like, it was like, as long as you're like going to graduate, they were like, you got 5 years, do it in 5.
Get your 12 credits a semester.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that's what I did. And and yeah, I mean, like, yes, it was tough, but at the end of the day, I think that it helped me to get to the point where I am today. It helped me in realizing that, you know, being on top of my schedule and like being responsive to sponsors and making sure that if I say I'm going to do something by a day, I do it by a day, because every single time I go to a trade show or meet with my sponsors that only sponsor like climbers, you know, like let's say like Cliff Bar or something, sponsor a ton of athletes.
Sure.
But like if it's like just
Asana.
like yeah, exactly. It's always the same thing. Like, you are by far the best athlete that we ever deal with, because I actually respond to an email.
Right.
Or like I make a phone call, or if I say I'm going to make a video and I'm going to put a logo in the front, I actually even make the video and I put the logo in the front.
I mean, it's impressive because at this time you were still climbing extremely well. So that's awesome. Kudos to you for doing that. But then after college, you kind of pursued that lifestyle as well, right? Like you kind of
Yep.
had the.
Yep.
And was that a change in terms of gaining sponsorships, or was it just the buildup of all the time in college, I guess?
So what I think that did to me that was very beneficial is it made me realize how valuable free time was.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I did graduate,
Yeah.
it was like the craziest 9 months of my life, because I was like, I'm climbing every day and I don't care because I don't have to go to school tomorrow.
Oh, it's just the best
Yeah,
feeling, man.
exactly. It was the best feeling. And I remember I took my last 2 courses online from Europe, and I lived in Europe for 9 months, and then I went to South Africa after that, and it was like, I was like, this is the life.
Oh,
And then
God.
at that point, it was like, from that point forward, it was, I had the sponsors. My family was no longer helping me, like, with
so
support.
you're a paid, when
So at
you
this
graduate,
point-
you're a paid athlete. Like you're
Yes.
living off
So
of
like
it.
probably by junior year of college, I was making enough to support myself.
Nice.
And
wow,
then
that's great.
senior year, same thing, more than graduating, and it was like, wow, like I can travel, I can climb, it's incredible. I can just do what I want, and I'm making enough money now that obviously I'm not making millions, but like I'm making enough money that I can do exactly what I want to do.
Dude, do you ever reflect on, not lucky, I'm not saying lucky, how like amazing that is? Like, do you ever just
every
think,
single
I can't
day.
believe 9 years old I didn't know what climbing is, and
Yeah.
now it's my career.
Oh, I mean, it is lucky in a lot of ways. And yeah, I mean, once I kind of realized that it was a career, there was nothing that I wanted to do besides that. And it is so lucky, because I mean, how many people go to college, graduate, and then are like, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah,
And they just
well,
spent 4 years of their life in college, and then they're graduating and they're like, I hate what I got my degree in.
I think that's more of a systemic failure of culture in the United States.
No, we could go into a million things about that, but I mean, I felt so lucky that probably by the age of 14,
You knew.
I knew like that
It's
I
just
was
so
gonna
unique.
make this. I was gonna make this what I do every single day, because that's how I'd be the happiest.
And I read somewhere where you said climbing is the only thing I've ever done that I never get sick of.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, it's kind of crazy, because like I've tried so many other things, and I like a lot of other things, and like when in my early 20s, like I started surfing with some friends, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I thought, wow, maybe this sport's just as cool. And then like I did like a 2-week surf trip, and then and like 10 days in, I'm like, man, I freaking miss climbing. And it's just like, and there's nothing in this world that I have found that like, I mean, I climbed today, and I'm looking forward to climbing tomorrow.
Every day.
Every day.
And that's the same way you feel too, Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean,
Because there's a difference between the lifer and somebody that you can look at, and I see these people all the time. You look at them in the eyes, you see them at the gym, or you see them at the crag, and you're like, yeah, it's not going to last. Like I can see the passion right now, but you're going to wash out. But there are people who are just lifers.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say that I'm a lifer for sure. And it's just like, it's cool to see these people that have been climbing for so long that are still motivated on it. Like that are lifers and been climbing for like 30 plus years or something. You're like, oh, like I feel the same way Paul does. And many, many other people that climb do, where it's just like, I haven't found anything else that even remotely comes close to like the pleasure and the amount of fun and the motivation I have for climbing.
Yeah, I agree.
it's
You ever
just-
do those like brain teases that like if you had to give up this, would you for that? Like I always think
Oh,
if
yeah.
somebody said to me, if you could never read another word outside of like work or safety, would you give up climbing for that? And that's the only thing I would give up climbing for. If I could never read another book.
I'm not a reader, so I would just be like,
You'd be like,
nah,
fuck it, I don't care.
I don't care about reading.
Stop signs and directions is all I need.
True.
I think that's the only thing I would ever give up.
Well,
What about you? You wouldn't give up porn for climbing.
I think I would.
oh, damn.
I'm hunting for something.
I have a question for Paul. I mean, recently Paul and I have been doing like a lot of like, he's building a house up in the mountains.
Whoa.
And I always make fun of him. I was like, you've never actually had a real job, like blah, blah, blah. But like, we're up there hustling, like chopping down like 300
that's where you're like
trees.
clearing the
Yeah.
trees.
I mentioned that last time.
Yeah.
And we're hustling and we're chopping down trees. And I'm expecting Paul to be like, oh, I don't feel like working. But his work ethic is like on top of it. And I've worked with him with like video stuff and this, that. And he's obviously on top of that. Do you think that work ethic came from your time in college? And without that time in college, do you think your work ethic, let's just say chopping down trees on your land that you're building your house on, let's just say you didn't go to college, would you just be like this lazy person sitting on the side being like, I'm paying you $15 an hour to chop down my trees? Because that's not the case.
It's 20, Jeremy.
It's 20.
I know how much I pay you.
And he's drinking iced tea when he tells you that. Please.
Harder, Jeremy.
But he's making me work in the sun. It's very hot. No, okay, $20 an hour. Whatever. I was just hypothetically speaking. Do you think that work ethic came from going to college? And if you didn't go to college, you wouldn't have the work ethic?
No. I think just came from just like my family growing up.
Yeah,
in
good
a lot
parents
of ways.
go a long ways.
Yeah, my parents, like, both were very hardworking individuals, and they instilled that into both my brother and I. And I think, regardless of high school, college, whatever it is, I think I'd still have the same outlook on all of that.
I just thought it was interesting because, again, I've seen you like, and we've worked in like a lot of video stuff where it's just been like, oh, like obviously this is the work that you like to do. And then I was like, honestly taken back and like surprised and like, I don't know, just inspired. I was like, okay, he's like actually working. Like I should actually work too for my $20 an hour.
$20?
Yeah, $20.
It was good rate.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard work though.
It was hard work.
Yeah.
Remember what? Just a funny story. He's like, "Yeah, dude, here's my property." And we went up day one. I was like, "What are all these blue marks on the trees, dude?" He's like, "Those are the trees we have to chop down."
Like
and it was
thousands.
like, it was a forest.
Oh, at least 200.
At least 200. It was like 300 trees. And he's like,
God.
check out this chainsaw. And it was like this 3-inch blade that you like take off the wood.
I was too scared to buy the big one.
Yeah,
Because I'd never used one before.
Jeremy's like, oh, that's fucking
Hey,
great.
we know what
That's
happened to
cute.
Tommy.
Yeah. No, exactly. I was terrified. I mean, the first day we went up there, I was like, I was telling KB, my wife, I was like, I hope I come down. I hope I make it.
Well, we had a friend, and I think I mentioned it. He like fell a tree and it rent up his shin.
Oh,
we had to
yes.
rush down
Yeah.
on like the third or fourth day that we were up there.
Logging is serious. business.
Oh yeah. No, I
It's
mean,
it's
Are
pretty
you
much
guys
done though.
Are you guys building using that wood to build the house?
I'm building a house. Next
You're
to
building.
Paul's house.
Oh,
Jeremy
I'm
just
still,
lives in
I'm
this
still
little
trying
shack.
to convince his wife Katarzyna to let me build a house, and she's like, no.
people leave Paul's house. They're like, oh, is that the outhouse?
No,
And
that's
you're like,
Jeremy's
no, that's
home.
where Jeremy lives.
I'm just like waving and then,
Through the one window.
Here's our
with a
wood
candle
boy.
in it.
we will use it. We'll use a majority of it for firewood.
Oh, so
Yeah, because we'll have a wood burning stove. So hopefully we can heat
in my house.
the majority of the house. Use it for Jeremy. It's in pieces like this big now.
But this is like the running joke that we have with Katarzyna, and she's just like, absolutely.
Jeremy just wants to be with his good friend Paul.
Yeah, exactly. Down the hill.
Katarzyna.
downhill in the fireplace.
Yeah. So
Oh my God,
yeah,
that's
but
funny.
I mean, I think hopefully we'll be able to like make little bits of furniture or something
Sweet,
like that.
that's
But yeah,
awesome.
I want to use all of it in some regard
Yeah.
because obviously it sucked to have to chop all those trees down. But I mean, it was impossible to build a house without doing so. So
Just want to spend some time.
Nice
together.
work, Jeremy.
yeah, and
Thanks.
Jeremy was up there working hard.
Yeah.
When we
unlike
interviewed
unlike
you were in
my
the
other
middle of it.
friends.
Yeah, we had a couple of our friends come up and like, I don't even know if they were getting paid. They were just hanging. I hope they were just hanging out.
Thankfully.
Fernando.
Yeah, just like like
just was,
on
like,
his
on his
phone
phone,
playing
yeah.
games as like Jeremy and I are like
"Ah."
carrying like 60 pounds of logs across
like-
the lot.
I'm like, dude, look at Fernando. I hope you're not paying him. He's like, oh, he's only getting $15. You're getting 20 because I know you're hustling.
Shout
Yo,
out
you
to
guys-
Fernando.
You guys are to come down from the mountains. These like jacked lumberjacks.
Oh
But yeah, it took us a while. We finally cleared most of it.
Yeah,
we just have
pretty
to bring
much
up a little bit more.
Yeah, pretty much all out. But it's been
The dirt's going down.
It's been a really fun process because it's something I never really would have expected to learn. You know, all these crazy things that you just don't really, you know, like.
especially up in the mountains.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
hills like this.
yeah,
45 degrees.
Well, and the house is at like 9,000 feet too, so I mean, you're like working hard up there.
Yeah.
but like you know, defensible space for fires and making sure all the
Yeah.
trees are chopped down, and then like also like working with different engineers to make sure the driveway works. But then like the fire department has to come in, and like you have to have your driveway this long, and like it's a crazy process. But it's cool because I felt like, I mean, as I'm sure you can imagine from everything I've said, like just learning things is always so exciting to me.
Yeah.
And it's been a massive learning experience. And so whenever I meet with like a builder or someone that I need to talk to, they're always like, whoa, like, you know what you're talking about.
Well, another thing is when you learn those kind of you learn tradecraft,
Yeah.
right? At the end of it, you're always like, fuck, I can't believe people pay other people to do this. Like,
Yeah.
No.
it's actually not that hard.
No.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it's just prohibitive because it seems, you know, like trigonometry. Like, how do I set tile in the back? How do I put a toilet in? How do we take it off?
Yeah.
How do I
Yeah, that's
install
the
a
next thing
medicine
we're gonna have to
cabinet?
learn.
Yeah, we're gonna. Paul's gonna hire me for $20 an hour to install a toilet.
You guys should
and
start a
tile and
YouTube
everything.
channel. Paul and Jeremy build a house.
That's gonna be the front page.
I would watch that.
Oh my
Little
gosh.
thumbs up.
Jefferson County rolls up and is like, no, we are not signing off on this.
No.
It's like, turn off the cameras, boys.
No, but honestly, it's like Paul never used a chainsaw, but at the end of chopping down all the trees, he was like more competent than I was. And I was like, I've been doing this my whole life. And he's like, get out of the way, Jeremy. And like we would just be using, like the big boys.
the big boy ones.
And you just like let the weight of the chainsaw just
Yes.
go through, and Paul and I are like, dude, we wasted so much time.
my
We should have
God.
just bought one of these chainsaws.
These chainsaws get through these like, I don't know, 18-inch
yeah.
trees in 15 seconds,
Seconds.
probably. Whereas
Whereas-
Jeremy and I would be like switching spots to get through a tree.
Oh,
for
God,
like,
this sounds
oh,
terrible.
it would take like
Minutes.
minutes
Yeah,
to do
minutes.
a single cut.
Yeah.
Dude.
Dude,
But
you
we
guys,
the worker,
It's like climbing Lucid Dreaming in EBs.
With bison chalk.
With bison chalk, exactly.
are you guys like
Sorry,
V10 house or tree choppers now?
No,
Like,
no,
not quite. Okay.
V4.
Yeah.
Chop talk. Moving on. Paul, I have a question
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
So your 2000s were defined by pursuing. Sorry, just thinking about the trees. Pursuing cutting edge boulders, the limits, pushing the limits.
Mm.
How would you describe your, like the past, I guess, the 2010s to you? Kind of. You've kind of transitioned more from just being out there to producing your own content,
Mhm.
producing media, and sort of taking a different. You've honestly, you have adapted very well to the current, like media climate, I guess, if that's a way to say it.
I guess yes, I agree. But basically in doing so, trying to maintain that core aspect, because I feel like it is very easy to just kind of go like media heavy and kind of be like, you know, a media whore in a lot of ways, which like I've never wanted to do. That's never been my goal. However, I think like 2010 was when I did Lucid Dreaming, and then 2011 is when I graduated from college. So then that 2010 to 2014ish time period was kind of that like just travel and climb as much as I possibly could and do as many hard climbs and first ascents or whatever that I kind of was passionate about at the time. But what happened is in that 2010 to 2012 time period, I was working with a lot of photographers and videographers, and I would always ask them questions like, oh, well, you know, why are you using that lens? Or like, what, you know, like, what are your settings or whatever it may be. And so, eventually one of them was like, hey, why don't you just go get a camera? Like,
Yeah,
if you're so
start trying,
interested
yeah.
by this. And I saw this like massive disparity kind of, because you had the poor climber, but then you had this like very like well-off videographer. And you're like, well, this doesn't make much sense.
Chuck
Like,
Freiberger with his red out there.
yeah, well, I mean, anyone, Chuck, Josh, like
Yeah.
the big up guys. And it was like, these guys are like, oh yeah, dude, we'll film you for like a month and like, here's $500. And you're like, dude, like, this doesn't really make much
Yeah,
sense,
yeah,
because you're
that's
going to
a
do a
good
film
point,
tour
man.
and make like $100,000 and I'm going to get $500. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm watching what you guys are doing and like, I could do this myself. And so like, being a person that likes to at least think that they're creative and try and be creative in the best ways I can, it kind of just made sense. I was like, well, this would be really fun. Like, because if I can take the media into my own hands, like, I can be of more value to my sponsors, which inherently will allow me to get paid more, which inherently will then allow me to travel more and climb more and do the things that I want to do more. And also I can be creative and I can produce my own media, because also too, I mean, when you do an interview with someone and they can spin it however they want, right?
Yes.
Which, like, thankfully I've never had an interview or like a video where I've been like, oh wow, like I'm very unhappy with like how
Wait till we chop this one
yeah,
up.
I know. I was like, oh boy,
It was a first time for everything, Paul.
1,500 people are gonna hear it.
Yeah, suck it, Dave.
I
Nice
regret
podcast,
saying
Dave.
that. All right, you win, Robinson.
Nice podcast.
Podcasting seems pretty hard, Dave. $15 an
post
hour.
We're gonna post about it. Do not watch this. This is a bad podcast.
Everyone
right.
would click it then.
We'll get it shut
Let's just
down.
forget about what just happened and carry on.
But it felt really fun to kind of take that kind of that over, and it was cool because I could kind of create an audience and create media that I wanted to put out, and that at that time, I mean, I remember I was over in my first trip to Europe, I was like selling videos to BD, and they would be posting them, and it was like, I'd climb for a week, have like 3 climbs in a video, and maybe sell it to BD for like $500, and I'm like, this is sick. Like,
Yeah.
that's another 3 weeks of living.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And then like I would sell a video to Prana for $1,000 or something. And I'm like, oh, like, this is awesome. And so like, it was kind of this like constant thing of like, if I just keep doing this, like this is going to allow me to keep climbing and traveling. And it was also something that I really enjoyed. And then also at the same time, in the beginning, my first camera was like one of those little Canon Rebels.
Yeah.
You know.
Which badass back in the day.
No, of course, and like a great starter camera and everything
Yes.
like that, and then, I mean, obviously, like I saw Chuck with like a Red and like all these guys, and then at the time, I remember like the 5D Mark II came out, and that was like the first camera that was shooting like pretty good DSLR
That's what you have,
video.
right?
I love that camera.
Yeah, I mean, great camera. And so then I was like, okay, well, like, I wasn't going to just like, I couldn't afford it anyway, but like, wouldn't have made sense. Like, oh, I'm just going to go buy a Red, right? And so
Jesus.
like, I wouldn't have even known what I was doing. So, but like, again, just like with my climbing and like being like kind of the competitive person that I am, I wanted to sell these videos, but also create content that was engaging and that wasn't just this kind of like, oh, here's a send clip that we see all the time. Like, it's just these like one angle static shot, probably not even static because it's some dude just like holding an iPhone. You got it. Yeah, exactly. And then like, it pans up and you can't even see the guy anymore because the sky's like completely bleached out.
Uncut.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why that's cool, but
Uncut footy, bro.
yeah. But anyway, that was kind of like, and there were not many, there were really no athletes at that point doing their own media.
No.
And so I was like,
a single one.
well, I want to compete with these big guys because, again, just the nature
P-Rod.
of who I was, it was like, well, if they could do it, then like I just want to do it better.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, like if I make some money, like I'll buy myself a nice lens. And then like I got a nice lens, and then like I was like, all right, well then if I make some more, like I'm gonna I kept reinvesting.
Yep.
Is kind of what it came down to. And so then like I upgraded my camera, and then I was like, all right, well maybe now I'll make like a little feature length film and I'll sell it. And I was like, oh wow, like this actually can make a good amount of money. And so then I was like going back to making these like shorts for online and just constantly like pushing myself to
that
be.
was Uncharted Lines, by the way.
No,
no.
My
Schengen files.
Schengen files. Yeah.
Ah,
We got a fan over here.
Look at that.
Files. Yep. Schengen Files was my first film that I made that I sold.
Okay.
And that one was very short. It was like 25 minutes, and it captured my first trip to Font, and then it culminated with my the second ascent of The Story of Two Worlds in Switzerland.
Okay.
And that was that film. But again, like I mean, crunk. Like in terms of like where I am now.
Yeah.
But I mean, we all have to have a starting point.
That's right.
I mean, I look back and I watch it and I'm like, whoa.
I know. When the starting point is captured on video, though, that's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. But again, and so it was this like, I was constantly like reading up on like camera techniques and like, watching like Hollywood movies and being like, oh wow, like, how do they get this shot where like they walk through a room and like nothing, it's stable. Right.
Yeah.
And that was like new. That was like foreign to me. I was like, oh wow, like there's these things called dollies or gimbals, I mean, like, or like whatever it may be that you can, that like, I was like, all right, well, like this would be really cool to bring into climbing. And like, and then, I mean, I remember I was like one of like the early adopters of a drone. Like my very first drone, my friend and I built. Fernando.
No way.
Yeah, he actually worked
That
hard.
lazy bastard
Yeah.
built a drone, huh?
Yeah.
He's good at sitting down.
Fernando built a drone with me. And then that night, he was like, let's fly it. It was like 3 a.m. when we finished it. And we were in my apartment, and I was like, dude, we should go outside. And he's like, no, dude, it'll be fine.
Oh my God, no!
And he takes off, and he just flies it straight into the wall. I thought you were going to catch it.
Oh God!
Like,
Did it break?
no, it's actually okay.
Oh.
Yeah, but anyway, we built this thing. It was awesome. Like it came like in all these pieces, and like
Damn.
nowadays people have it so easy.
Yeah.
You just order it. It comes in the mail. You like turn it on and you can fly. It's super
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
But back then, it was you had to buy all the pieces, and so like there was kind of like you'd have the shell and you'd have all of like, and then but you had to have like a TX and an RX for the video, and we attached a GoPro and we like built this little
wow.
gimbal, and like I had like this monitor, but it was like God, I don't even know what the signal was, but it wasn't like the signal today, because the signal today, I mean, you can go
It's
like
insane.
a mile away and like you'll still actually have video coming back to you.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, I mean, dude, I would take it like 200 feet away, and the thing's like, it's like an old school TV, like gray lines coming down. I'm like,
We're losing it, Fernando.
I think I
back, Fern.
I think I see the climber. So
What
then
year was this? Can we get a year?
2012.
yeah, give or take,
Okay.
because it was like the Phantom 1, like the original Phantom.
Man, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
not that long ago, but
Yeah.
No, because
Changed
that was
a
like
lot.
the first time that like, I mean, like back before that, like you would have to fully build it, because then like the Phantom 1 like had props and like they kind of told you what to buy, and like there was like a gimbal setup and everything like that.
Yeah.
But and they were like, all right, like because at that point DJI didn't have a proprietary camera, and
Oh, yeah,
so it was like you attach a GoPro.
yeah.
And so like I bought a GoPro, and like I mean, it was what it was. but like that was really cool, because people were like, oh wow, like this is innovative, because
Yeah.
it just like really wasn't being done, and like especially in these kind of like super low budget films that I'm creating. And so yeah, I mean, I was just kind of like I am with everything, just like kind of just always pushing myself. And I feel like I've kind of like continued to push myself through cinematography and everything like that. And I was really into photo for a while, and a lot of people, like, I mean, I've heard this countless times in my life, but it's like, you know, pick one thing and put 100% into it.
Yeah.
Because you can't be amazing at everything.
You can't wear too many
No.
hats.
No,
for sure.
absolutely. And like, obviously, like, number one is always going to be climbing. And, you know, I mean, I not always, like, but like right now, climbing is number one, and cinematography is definitely a close second for me. But like, I kind of have almost just fully given up on photography, just in the sense that like I really want to push myself in terms of video, because you know, it's just a whole different animal with a whole different amount of equipment and everything like that. And I feel like I'm much better at telling a story through video than I am with photo.
I feel like nowadays too, it's like the video, you can just get a screen grab from a video and it's like almost just as good,
Yeah.
if not better
4K is
sometimes.
well,
Yeah.
For the red, you
Yeah.
totally
For
can.
the
yeah.
red
I
or
mean,
whatever.
4K is over 8 megapixels, so
Yeah.
like if it's crisp, like you can easily use it on Instagram.
Yeah. I remember when you first got the red and you had it for a while. We were like out in Wild Basin. It's like, oh, what's this thing in the middle of
So
the trail?
heavy.
He's like, oh, that's the red. Check it out. And I pick it up. I'm like, oh, this is cool. He's like, yeah, it's worth this. I'm like, oh,
take it away from me.
Get it
Yeah.
away. I'm like, what is this doing in the middle of the trail? First of all, and second of all, no, I'm not gonna help.
I'm not
film
gonna
on
touch
this.
that
Yeah.
thing.
He's like, it's super sturdy, dude. I have insurance. I'm like, all right. fine.
Tell them about For the Real.
For the real. Oh my god. My first time out of the country ever, this trip to South Africa, luckily I went out with Paul and he just showed me the ropes and everything. And the whole time, literally the whole time, I'm not even exaggerating.
2 months.
2 months straight. He was just like filming stuff and he was making his reel for his YouTube channel. And it was just like always for the real.
But I would always like have too much equipment, and I'd
And
be
I
like,
would always have
Jeremy,
to
can
carry
you
it.
please carry this
yeah.
tripod?
I was gonna
I would have sent double the amount of boulder problems if it hadn't been for this dumb red camera
Dude, once
and
you
all this
enter,
equipment.
once you enter that realm of reds, everything gets so much
heavy.
more complicated. With like the equipment is just.
I'm telling
huge.
I always mess with Paul. I'm like, dude, I would have sent the Vice way sooner if I wasn't carrying,
Carrying
the
your
red up.
stupid 50-pound red
He's like,
tripod.
But we had the video of the Vice on the red. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, but
That's true. We did capture
yeah,
the
it was-
scent.
it
Yeah,
was
did you
nice.
look? It looked good, didn't it?
It was
did.
nice.
Dude, it was
We
for
had
the
it on a
real.
slide
It was
and
for the
everything.
real.
It was for the real.
Everything's for
I
the
had to
real.
wake up at certain times to
Yes.
like walk out the door and
Oh,
stuff. And I was like,
yes.
all right,
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
it was cool.
Is Paul
It was
good?
fun.
Is Paul a good
Yeah.
director?
Yeah.
He's
He's a
like,
great
smile a
director.
little more, Jeremy.
Just screams it's for the real, and that's
Yeah, and then everyone just gets into place. They're like, all right, we know this is
Yeah,
important.
I always mess with Paul because he didn't notice that I was making fun of him for like 6 months at this one point because he's always like, yeah, team, yeah, and I just kept saying this high pitched voice. He's like, why do you keep saying that? I was like, that's you. I'm imitating you. He's like, I do not sound like that.
You said that on the first podcast
Yeah.
we had with you. You're like,
yeah, team, yeah, team.
Yeah,
this is my Paul Robinson voice.
Yeah, team, yeah, team. Sorry, Paul.
It's not what I sound.
We have a good friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good friends can talk like that to each other.
Yeah.
I have a
Dave-
question
Dave
of-
and I, but
We don't talk away from the podcast, though,
No.
ever.
only
don't
in
speak.
mics.
Only into mics is the only time we speak.
So sorry.
It's pretty uncomfortable when we turn the mics off for you guys. I have a question about curation.
Mm.
So, like, if you're making your own films, you obviously have the opportunity to curate for yourself. And to say that there's a lot of phony, quote unquote, stuff in climbing media, I think would be generous. Like, there's a lot of influencer type stuff and I don't know, seeing life through rosy colored glasses. Do you think about the way that you're like curating your story to be as like realistic and
Yeah.
legitimate? Because that's
Yeah.
I think
No,
that's
it's very
a kind of a
important.
responsibility
Yeah.
you have as a media maker, as long as you want longevity,
Mm-hmm.
is to curate yourself in like a meaningful manner. Is that something you think about?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's. I think that the best climbing media, as long as it's well done, is always going to be created by a core climber.
Yeah.
having shot like an actual like commercial that went on TV with non-climbers, it was, you could just tell from the very beginning that it was not going to be for a core audience. And so I think that kind of going back to what I was saying before is like when I create something like and I click upload to the internet, like it's true to me, which means it's true to the climbing community.
Yeah, which means you can look back at it with no matter what the quality of it is, right? You can look back at the story with
and
pride.
Be proud of exactly that because at the end of the day, it's like we're not making Stranger Things, you know. It's like what we're doing here is we're recreating something that just occurred in a truthful manner.
Yeah.
Right. You know, it's not like this like storyline. Right. You know, and that's like kind of like I guess our obligation to the climbing community.
I mean, I don't think that's everybody's I don't think everybody feels that way. I think the big dogs feel that way. Like Peter Mortimer and Nick Rosen and Dusatko back in the day when it was real gritty and you know, like good, that's a good answer. Okay. I want to ask you another question about lucid dreaming.
Got it.
So 2010. Amazing send. I've been going to
those holes are so small.
Dude,
it's insane.
18 years I've spent in Bishop, at least 2 weeks every year.
Wow. That's cool.
Last 4 years, full seasons. And I've looked at that since 2010 and under my breath called you a freak. And I apologize for that. But anyway, first of all, what was that experience like? Because that was kind of a seminal moment for, like, that was a big deal when Lucid Dreaming went down. Can you maybe rehash some of the story of that? And I know there was some controversy about it afterwards. I'd love to hear the whole story about that.
No, absolutely. So let's see. I guess I'll kind of go back. So Dosage 5 came out prior to Progression, which was what Lucid Dreaming was in.
Okay.
And so the first time I worked with Josh and those guys was for Dosage 5. And so we shot, I don't know, Colorado and the East Coast and stuff. Back, like, this was like right around when I think I was in college. I was like sophomore or something like that. And so then they put that movie out. They premiered it at the Boulder Theater. It was awesome. It was so cool. I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, because
that must have been
from Dosage 1, you know, I remember watching Dosage 1 and it's like Sharma doing the mandala and I'm like, I'm in a Dosage.
Yeah, that's so sick. Right.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the only game in town back then. Like the only series.
Yeah.
You know, every year you could be like, oh man, I can't wait till
Super
Dosage
solid.
4.
And it was so core too. And that's
so core.
That's really kind of what was like really cool back then, because there was no point in not being core. Not to say that like a lot of the stuff that's coming out now isn't core, but like, you know, you can see like kind of a trend moving towards this kind of more mainstream in the Real Rock tour. In a lot of ways, because, you know, they're like, okay, well, like, we're going to do this tour, but then eventually, like, we'd like to get it on Netflix or Amazon or whatever. So, like, they kind of have to cater a bit more towards, like, a more mainstream audience, which, like, I mean, dude, you show Dosage 1 to, like, some, like, Netflix guy. And
like, what the fuck is wrong with these guys?
Is that robot computer? We would like to deny this.
Yeah, exactly. Who's this Obi Carry-On fellow?
Come on, Obi.
So yeah, I mean, so it was kind of like this, like, very, very cool. Like, I was like, wow, dude, this is sick. And so
I can't imagine.
And so kind of like going back into that time period of like Dosage 5, at that point, I had been working that project, 2008, 9-ish. I had tried it because I was going each year.
What was the original name of it? Something Rastafarian?
Yeah, so the Rastaman Vibrations was the stand start, which basically did the last hard jump move and then topped it out.
Okay.
And that was put up by Jared Roth, 2006-ish, 7-ish maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not exactly sure when he put it up. But anyway, I'm not really sure who exactly showed me the line first, but back then I find it hard to imagine that like I would have like visualized it. I imagine someone would have been, hey, like
This is an open project.
this is a project, like it's been done from here, like this is really sick, and then I could then see it, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
kind of before the time that I was even really looking
Sure.
for first ascents. I was kind of more just very concentrated on trying to climb like the hardest things.
Yeah.
And so so then 2009 was I was junior-ish time period in school, and so I tried it. It was like 2008 I tried it, 2009 I tried it. I think I went 2 trips and I tried it, and I started to get close. And then like
what does close mean on
well,
Lucid
close
Dreaming?
means in the sense that like I guess I'd done all the moves.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because it's 2 hard moves, right? So
Right.
It's like, you know.
And you were just giving it like send goes. Like
Yeah,
that's
at that
close.
point, like in 2009, I remember 2008, I don't think, but 2009, I was definitely giving it send efforts. Like
Yeah.
with the thought, like, okay, I could do this thing. And so then, I guess during that time of filming Dosage, I can't really remember it exactly, but I guess after that came out, there must have been some talk between Josh and myself about this project. And, you know, I guess he kind of he got psyched about going and filming.
We'd love to be there. When
Yeah, exactly. We'd love to be there. And so 2010, was it? Yeah, it was 2010 when I did it. Yeah. So 2010 spring break. Again, because I'm in school, right?
Yeah, I know. It's just wild.
Yeah, so I'm in school, so we go out there, and Josh comes out and Pete come out, and it was like in the beginning, it was like trying to figure it out. It was like I would always go there in the beginning of the trip. I always thought, oh, it's better to try it in the evening. And so I try it in the evening and try in the evening. And then I don't really know what happened, but at some point during the trip, I kind of realized that the wall would bake and would kind of get too much sun late
Especially
in the
on
day.
that side of it.
Yeah, so it'd get too much sun late in the day, and the rock was just kind of hot.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you know, maybe I should start trying this thing in the morning. And so I started trying in the morning, and I was like, oh, this is making a big difference.
Much crisper.
But it was really kind of crazy because, like, you know, they had their crew, and I mean, it wasn't like it was just the 2 of them, but like at that point, you know, just even a dude at the crag with a camera was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because no one, I mean,
No one else.
nowadays it's just like
Everything.
everyone,
Can you step to the side? My
everyone.
Exactly. You're trying to send around. Oh, I'm sorry. They're working on the process. You're gonna maybe you can come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Scoot. In the middle of the day, maybe 2 in the afternoon. You can try to climb
Yeah.
this.
And so this was that time period when I was just asking a bunch of questions. I didn't even have a camera. I didn't even know how to really use a camera at this point. But I was just interested, right? It's kind of going back full circle to what we were talking about before. So I was trying it, and I was getting super, super close. Like I remember, like every day I'd go out there and like I would like stick the thing, and I'd swing out, and I'd be like a millimeter from like coming back in and holding the swing, and I would like fall. And I was like, oh, it's gonna happen. And and I'm like, this is kind of like the first time I'm like publicly telling this part of the story. Is like, so then those guys, they'd been out there for like 10 days, and like at this point, like I remember it was like their wives or their significant others, they were like getting pissed that they were like out there for so long and they needed to go back. And they're like, Paul, we just need you to like do the moves, and then like we're just gonna like leave you with this camera that like I didn't know how to work. We're gonna leave you with this camera, and then you're just gonna film yourself doing it. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, just like you just turn it on and like turn this setting and do this. And I was like, this is really weird. Like, okay. They're like, yeah, like this is the tripod. You set it up and like you press record and blah, blah, blah. And, but sorry, let me retract. So like I tried that day, I got really close, and then like my skin was really bad. And they're like, well, we need you to do the crux move. You know, like this is like very standard kind of big up production style. Like they just really don't care about like what your like goal is, like as long as they can get the shot. And I'm like, my skin's bad, blah, 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 we need to get the shot. And I'm like, okay, like fine. And so like I do the move a couple times, and like I split my tip, and like, I mean, my skin at this point was like thrashed.
Yeah,
And
those are
so-
bad holds.
No,
Jesus.
exactly. And they're sharp and like,
It's like a shark tooth.
and I was, at this point I was just like pissed, you know? And then they just like pieced. And they left me with this camera, and I'm like in Bishop by myself with this camera. And so then, my girlfriend at the time, spring break's over, but I was like, I'm not going back till I do this thing. Yeah. And so, but you know, she's like, I kind of do have to go back.
I'm not gonna be a professional climber. I gotta go back to school.
Yeah. So I remember, I think we must have flown from Vegas. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. So I drove her back to the airport, and then I drove back to Bishop, and like I took a rest day or whatever, and then like my skin was like finally like good enough or whatever, and as you know, I mean, like the holds in the Buttermilks are very condition dependent, right? But they're very glassy, and especially on that climb. And so
Everything on that wall.
and so every time I tried it, like, you know, standard Bishop conditions, it had always been super dry, right? And so like I was starting to get stressed out because I'm like, yeah, like obviously I could stay out here forever, but I need to go back to school. Like, and I'm like, okay, well, like, you know, I'll give myself a couple more days or whatever. And so then like one morning I woke up and I'm like, I'm going to go get after it. And so like I like the night before, I remember I'd like tried to get in touch, like Will's young, he lived there. I tried to get in touch with him, and like Maddie was there. Maddie Hong was there, and I tried to get in touch with him, and I couldn't get in touch with anyone. And I had all these pads, and like I had this freaking stupid camera. And so like, and like at this point, I mean, I was pissed, you know? It's like, obviously, like I mean, who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
Like you just literally like are like days away from sending this like super hard boulder, and like the film crew is just
left,
like, well, our wives are mad, we got to leave.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go out there. And so like I had a bunch of pads, and like that morning, like I remember, like, I mean, this is well before the Buttermilks were like popular. I mean, even in 2010, like there weren't that many people out there.
Certainly
Nothing like
today.
what it's like today,
Nothing.
right? And so, yeah, so I mean, I went out there, and I got out there, and like I shuttled the pads up. Like I had that bunch, like 8 or something like that I shuttled up. And I mean, honestly, like it's kind of the type of climb that like you rehearse it so many times that like once you stick that hold, like it doesn't matter if you have, I mean, again, if you fall up there, it doesn't matter if you have like 2 double stacked pads or like,
No.
it doesn't matter. You're gonna like really mess yourself up.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so I bring the pads up, and then I freaking go get this damn camera, and like I set it down, and like I'm like, all right, well, if I get up there, like I don't wanna like have to climb down. That was like my thought. Like, and I already had a rope set up there. So I kind of like, I had it. So I tied a knot on one end of the rope, but it was a really long rope. And so I tied a knot, and I pulled that rope all the way till it got to the bolt, because I knew that if I got up there and I just tied the harness to the rope. So I knew that if I got up there, I could pull the harness up, I could wrap down, and then I could pull from the other side to pull the rope out.
Yeah.
Right. Makes sense.
Yes.
Simple. And so like at this point, like I'd called all those guys, and when you got out, I don't know if you can now, but there was like no cell phone service out there.
There is no.
Oh, okay. I'm sure.
For
Like
sure.
there is everywhere.
Yeah.
And so like I drove out there, and I was like, I left messages. I was like, all right, I'm going out there, try the project. Like,
So you're
I'll
just
be out there.
alone this day.
I'm just alone.
Unbelievable.
I know.
That's kind of the craziest
Literally,
part of the story.
there was no one in the Buttermilks.
What is it, like 6 in the morning?
No. It's like, I don't know, 9 or 10. What? Yeah.
How times have changed.
There was one, I remember it distinctly. There was one car, because I was like, man, if I find this guy, like maybe he could like move pads or something. But like it was just like one car, and it was like I parked behind it, and then like I shuttled all the pads up or whatever. And then like the camera was just like on, like just sitting there on the ground. And like I was just like, all right, I'm gonna warm up, and then like I'll go set this damn thing up, because at this point, like I just didn't even have any interest like in like just dealing with it. But anyway, I was like, all right, I'll go set this thing up. And so like the second I started trying it, I was like, oh my god, like this like, oh, that was kind of the other thing too, is that it was cloudy this day. So there was like a bit of like this humidity in the air. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, I don't know if it's going to be good. But then, like, I pulled on, like, on that, like, shitty pinch in the undercling, and I, like, did that jump move, like, first try, and I was like, whoa, it feels really good right now. But then, like, the second I did that, like, because I'm, like, fully warmed up at this point, like, it starts to, like, drizzle. And I'm like, oh, shit. And I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
And that was it. I just like I was like, camera was there on the ground, didn't even do anything, and had my pad set up, did the boulder, climbed it to the top. I was standing up there in the rain.
Yeah.
And I just pulled the harness up, wrapped down, and then I just like I remember I drove back down the road. I had like a voicemail from Will's, and then I like called Josh and I was like, I did it. And then, yeah, exactly. Well, like, and then, you know, and then I had to explain it to him and everything like that. And like, you know, and then he was like, you did it. And I was like, yes, I did it. And he's like, I'm like, dude, I'm not like going to lie about something like this. This could ruin like who I am as a person. Like this would be so stupid.
Absolutely.
And so he's like, okay, well then like, well, we have it. Like, you should like get in touch with Will's, and because Will's is a photographer, you know. Yeah. And so then he's like, well, get in touch with Will's. Maybe you guys could shoot some close-ups and then like, you know, call it good. And so then Will's came out, and it was like the same thing, you know. It was like because then the rain stopped at that point. And then the rain stopped. We go back out again. It's that like perfect, like, you know, like for me, it's like 99% of the time that like sticky damp that people talk about, like it doesn't really work, but in the Buttermilks I think it does in some ways, because like you need that little bit, because
slightly stickier.
Because the thing was is like I remember when I would try the boulder, I would like lick my tips and then I'd chalk up and then I would try it, and it was still like by the time I'd get to that pinch, it was just like felt like glass on my skin. And so like that was kind of like that tipping point for me of like, wow, I can actually do this move. And like, it was almost to the point where I could do that kind of crux move on command, because some people find that move to the pinch really hard. But for me, that move was never that difficult. Like every time I'd get to the pinch and I'd fall on the jump. Yeah. But then that day, you know, it was like, because of that little bit of extra, like not friction, but just grip that I had on the rock allowed me to do that move. So like Wills and I shot that move. And then since I had not, but prior to like, you know, me actually doing it an hour before, I'd never done the top out. So then I had to do the top out again. I was like, oh God. Yeah. So like I did the jump move and into the top out, and then we filmed all that and everything like that. And then, like it kind of like, in that core circle, it kind of blew up in my face, because from what I heard, like Brett Lowell, who wasn't even there, just like at like the premiere, just started telling people that like he didn't believe me. And so then like basically like everyone, you know, like all of
Brett Lowell said that in front
he was
of
saying
a crowd?
that no but like to people like Daniel.
Okay.
Yeah. To people.
I was gonna say.
No, not in front of the
suicide.
crowd. No. Of course, they would never. You know.
No.
You know, to the general public, obviously, like, you know, it still remains like, you know, the same. But like, you know, to like this, like in this core audience, they had this. I wasn't there. I think at that point I was in Europe when they did the world premiere at the Boulder Theater. But I just remember people telling me like, dude, like people are saying you didn't do this boulder. Like, what's up? And like I got all these like hate messages like don't lie, like you're a piece of shit.
What was the experience when the first time somebody wrote you like, hey, like what was your thought when you first found out that there was this weird
like, you know, obviously like from the beginning, you know, it's like climbing is such like an interesting sport where it's evolved so much in the sense that like nowadays like everything gets captured. Yeah. Whereas like back then it was like nothing got captured unless
very word of mouth.
Yeah, exactly. It was all word of mouth, and to be honest, like nothing got captured unless it was like a professional videographer filming something, and like 90% of the time it was like, oh, like Chris Sharma sent something, like we're gonna go fly to Spain to go capture it, right? So they would go film like the repeat of it, but like no one actually like saw the ascent or whatever it may be. So yeah, it was very word of mouth. And and I think in a lot of ways that maybe kind of was like almost a tipping point for the climbing community, because it was like, okay, well, it's like someone could lie. And I mean, obviously, there's all these speculations like, oh, Michael Reardon, he lied about ascents.
Akira.
Or like Akira, or like, I mean, I know people have called Sasha out for stuff, saying that she's lied about things and stuff like that. And like, we're never going to know.
Yeah.
But like, at the end of the day, it's like, kind of like, one, does it really matter?
Good point.
And two, it's like, I mean, if someone truly lives for the sport of, I don't know.
If you're a liar about that sort of thing,
yeah,
you are going to be a washout. You are going to wash out of the sport.
Exactly.
It's not sustainable. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. As soon as the spotlight leaves you, at some point, you're not going to care anymore. If your goal is to like lie about ascents.
Yeah.
What's shocking to me about the controversy is, like, you had a very solid like resume, like you have a body of climbing.
Yeah,
going
exactly.
Like if you were some rando who's like, yeah, I climbed the Rasta Man sit.
And it's
like,
what?
Like yeah, like there's no basis of credibility. But in your case, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's like that is a very strange, and I'm sorry you had to go through that, because it sounds
No, and it was tough. And I mean, to be honest, like if I could go back in time, like, I mean, sure. But I mean, at the same time too, if I went back in time, like, who knows? Like maybe I went and set that stupid camera up and like I wouldn't have done it.
You missed your window.
And maybe I
it's
missed
so
my
true.
window. It's like, I don't know. And obviously we can't go back in time, but like, in so many ways, it's like something that I'm like, man, like that was very, very tough to deal with. But then, I think in so many ways, like obviously people knew who I was at that time, but then 2010 onward, it was like, at that point, like, yes, Lucid Dreaming is a hard boulder. It's not the hardest boulder I've ever done at this point now. And it's like, I mean, I've done like 20 V15s. So it's kind of like, I don't think anyone really even thinks like at this point, like, oh, you didn't do it.
How long was that stretch of time where you were getting like these messages, these hate mails?
Well, I mean, it was more, the most painful thing to deal with was my friends that were doubting me.
Yeah.
And that was like really, really tough.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is crazy. Like we climb together all the time. Like, and then like these people were like treating me differently. Yeah. And then I was having to defend myself and explain it and everything. And at the end of the day, like, I think, like I said, like, it's been almost 10 years now. And it's like, there's obviously, it's like not even a question, but like, for that time period, it was tough. It was really, really tough to deal with, especially too, I mean, like when like people like that maybe were part of like the creating of the film were like calling me out and like,
What, to touch on the whole, like, I've been in that situation where I'm like, okay, I want to really film this, and it kind of throws off your mojo and your psyche, especially you're new to filming and stuff at that point, and you're just like setting up the camera, pressing record. Imagine if you did all that and you did miss your chance, and then someone else comes along and does the first ascent. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, well,
is it worth
it? Yeah.
Is it worth capturing it to like miss out on a perfect opportunity? And like, I've been in that situation a lot where I'm just like, screw the camera. I'm just gonna do this for myself. And
me
then
too.
You just, like, you
even
climb so much
today,
better. Yeah,
even
course.
today, when like for me, I could go set up a freaking tripod and a camera in less than a minute. I'm just like, dude, I don't freaking want to go over there, press record. I mean, dude, you feel like such a douchebag, dude.
I hate
it's
it
like
sometimes.
when you have a camera set up and like all your bros are around and like you walk over and you press record and then you see yourself like walk through the
or you're like, can you press record for me,
You get to the
please?
start and you're like, look back, make sure
like,
it's still
shit, did I press the
recording.
record button? Oh,
And then
God.
you're like, all right, I'll climb. And then like you do it, and then you're like, oh well, I got everything but the top out. Let me set this up. All right, guys, don't move the pads. Make sure you're spotting from the same place.
And then
You do. And it's like cringeworthy and stuff.
I'm cringing right now.
And I mean, even when you're by yourself, I mean, sometimes you're just like, man, like, you just don't want to. It's just, it does
annoying,
take away. It definitely takes away.
I find it, I mean, I obviously am not on the scale of like videoing stuff like you do, but do you find that it comes in waves? Like you're like, oh, I'm psyched on it and like I don't mind it, and then you're like, screw this, I'm just gonna go climb.
For me at this point, what I do is I hope someone like you or KB or something is out climbing with
Yeah,
me, because
it's so nice.
but also too, like a lot of the times, like I'll do something and then I'm like, okay, like the pressure's off, let me just film this in sections.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you know, when something's like really hard for you, like you have to have 100% like focus and everything into this, because if you don't, like, you're not going to do it. And like the idea of like going over, I know it's like so simple and easy, and like people are probably like going to be listening like, well, it's so easy. Just tell the GoPro record.
That's bullshit though, because I mean, you're climbing at the absolute apex of the sport. And it's, if anybody's out there listening thinking like, it's just a camera, imagine if you're a baseball player in the World Series stepping up to the plate, fully focused on what that pitcher is going to throw you. You're not going to be like, oh shit, I fucking Mark 5. I just, hold on, time out, and like click it and then be out of your zone when the dude's throwing a 92 mile per hour slider.
And
I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah. And sorry to cut you off, but
No worries.
And Paul brings up a good point. It's like we're at this point now where, like, you know, if I'm like, oh, I really want to film this thing, it kind of goes without question. I don't have to turn back and be like, you ready, Paul? It's like this understood thing where it's like, oh, I'm filming. If we're like out on a trip and we're like, let's just say we're out on a trip and sponsors are paying for part of the trip, and it's like part of the deal to give them some sort of footage for this, and it's like
a good deal.
We have this understanding where it's like, okay, like you didn't even have to ask me, like you stick in your zone, and like we have this cool understanding where it's just like, I'm recording. It's like, oh, you got that right? Yeah. Well, cool. You know.
Yeah, that's
and then
the
we
way to
just
do it.
refilm, like Paul said. Okay, I sent the climb. Like this angle would be sick. Okay, like you didn't get this part. Let's just reshoot this type of deal. And it's like this cool understanding.
Well, I remember after the Lucid Dreaming thing and a couple others that I don't recall, but I remember hearing the term uncut footage for the first time in my entire life, like around 2010 to 2012, and people
when
saying,
people started to get cameras.
and people saying like, if you don't have uncut footage,
It doesn't count.
it doesn't fucking count.
Well,
And are you
you're
like, are you kidding?
are you? Yeah, dude, I know.
It's
People
just
that don't
bizarre.
It's ridiculous.
people that climb on the weekends, like, and have full-time jobs, and people are getting called out. You didn't do the dolly.
That's not uncut footage.
Well, it's funny too, because like I've actually been in the situation where like, I don't believe that you did that. And you know what I say? I don't even say anything. I just send them the uncut footage, and they're like, "Oh, sorry about that."
People have said that to you. You've had that experience.
I'm just like, I've had it a couple times where they're just like, "I don't believe you," like blah blah blah. Like, I think you just shot this in all these different parts. I'm like, what are you even talking about here? Boom, and just like, I don't know why I'm getting questioned or why other people get questioned about this.
Yeah, it's like, what are we competing over?
What are you
right?
what are you
Like,
trying to prove?
it's like
And it goes back to like what we were talking about. If you did that and you were a liar throughout the time period of like as a climber, like how long can you do that and feel like okay with it and like not be able to prove it in different ways, shapes, or forms? Like, you know, Paul has this resume. We all have our resume of whatever, like, and we're just like, okay, I've climbed like 30 V12s. Like, okay, I didn't get the uncut footage of this V12. Are you going to question this?
Yeah,
V12?
like, why would
or
I
is this
know?
just like,
Yeah.
what do I have to do to prove to, like, I don't know. People,
Yeah.
nowadays they just sit behind their computer screen. They're just like,
Oh, yeah.
ask questions and make assumptions, and they're just like, I don't get it. It's like there's a lot of cool aspects from like the whole social media, like sitting behind the computer and stuff, but like a lot of negativity that comes with it too. And it's just like, we all see it on a daily basis
Every day, right.
I guarantee you, I grab my phone right now and I'm just gonna scroll and click, and it's like, oh, look at this negative comment, and that's just like a random thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Dude,
it's just
Twitter is a walking hellscape.
Well, yeah,
you know
of
what I
course.
mean? I mean,
it's amazing what people say behind
It's
their
just
computer screen.
it's just too bad there are some people out there who mostly in mountaineering, you know, alpine climbing, there have been those situations where people have not taken their photograph and their altimeter turns off. But what I always find is that those people who lie aren't in the game very long.
Mm.
It's just they wash out because they're doing it, in my opinion, for when that spotlight is shining, there's all kinds of motivation, and as soon as that spotlight turns off,
Yeah.
they're gone.
They're like doing it just for the spotlight.
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think there are that many people out there lying.
Super
Like, I
interesting.
can't
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
people get. I can't believe
Well,
you've been questioned before.
Yeah, it's the strangest
I mean, I
thing.
think everyone has, to be honest.
Oh, when you
Everyone
climb as
has-
weak as me, you never.
You didn't climb that
Ever.
V4, Dave. You son of a bitch.
I did. I climbed that V4. It's just that uncut footy, bruh.
doesn't count. And like that's like the running joke with like a lot of friends and stuff. Like it's funny to joke about that, but there are those serious people about it.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is like the mini compressor route is a super prime example, right? Like that. I don't know when it was like done by that Italian guy or whatever, right?
Oh,
Or, like,
Maestri?
done- yeah.
Okay, the compressor route.
Yeah, the compressor route. Like he said, "Oh, I did
1956
it,
or
but-
somewhere around
But the
there.
other guys went up there. They're just like, "Oh, it doesn't look like you did it because the bolts stop here."
Yeah.
It's like pretty obvious. And I mean, who knows the absolute truth? But he took that lie or whatever to his grave, and no one knows who did the first ascent at first. So this has been going on for
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all
makes
of time,
sense.
all throughout climbing. So it's not like just in 2010 or whatever.
No,
but
you're
it's just
exactly
like been
right.
going on for so long, and it's just like, yeah, it's like okay to question people, and it's like okay to like doubt people, but it's also, I don't know, some people just take it too far. Where
Yeah.
you're just like, you're making this your main focal point, like. Y'all need to go find a passion and figure out something else to do because like
Yeah.
you're clearly like just not, you're just bored and you're just like, I'm just gonna nitpick and like I'm gonna write this super long email and like blah 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 blah, like screw you dude, you didn't do it. It's like,
I mean, there's a lot of that.
you had time to do that? What
Yeah.
the heck?
There's a lot of that in every segment of our society, and unfortunately, it's in climbing too. And
Yeah.
there's always going to be the problem is that
Jealousy.
if you're
There's
putting-
a lot of jealousy.
well,
That's what
also
it is
if
too,
you're
yeah.
putting media out there, it sounds like both you guys have good heads on your shoulders, and you have to know to just not fucking care
Yeah.
what anybody says.
What the thing is like, okay, like I'm gonna like, someone's gonna ask me, oh, where's the uncut footy? And then I send it to them. It's like, I've got nothing to hide. You could tell these people that are just like lying or just like saying the wrong thing. You get like super like, oh, you know what? Why are you even questioning me? It's like, it's kind of weird. Like those types of people that like really fight it and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like, I just like let that stuff like come off my shoulders and like, yeah, I might say something like, you're wrong. Here's the uncut footy. Like, don't ever talk to me again. You know, like
Yeah, exactly.
sometimes you just have to say that to those.
Yeah,
people.
that relationship is over.
Yeah.
You know what? Here's the uncut footy. Fuck off, man.
Yeah. Go and follow me or follow someone else. Like what the heck?
I heard back in the day, in the beginning of Lincoln Lake, Chris Schulte claimed to do what's the one on the outside of the cave? Moat. He claimed to do Moat, and Daniel and Chad and Dave and those guys were like, no, he didn't do it, and they said it to his face.
Wow.
And then they were all there one day, and Schulte shows up and does it right in front of them, in their face.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
That's such a Chris Schulte story right
Yeah.
there.
I feel like Schulte gets questioned a lot.
And Daniel,
Does he really?
And Daniel was like, dude, I'm so sorry.
I feel like he gets questioned a lot because he's not really one to have like a film crew or many
exactly
people
right.
following him around. It's like, okay, he doesn't have the uncut footy, but he has this like resume where he's just like done enough where it's just like
should be
it-
trusted.
And this is a prime example. You just, you don't believe I did it? Boom. Like,
Yeah, walk up and do it.
you want me to do it again? Okay,
don't need the
boom.
footage.
You know, it's
Yeah.
just like,
To doubt
crazy.
Schulte on like a compression rig.
dude.
Yeah, what
God.
are you doing,
Yeah.
man?
He's
Yeah.
a monster. Have
like
you tried
saying-
some of his compression rigs where you're just like, just feeling the position and feeling the holds? You're like, what an animal.
He's that guy.
Yeah.
He is the compression guy.
Yeah.
Like if he does a compression rig, I don't care how hard it is. You're like,
He's one of my heroes.
Um,
Because
he's
I just love compression. I just like seek out those Schulte compression lines.
yeah,
I don't seek out Paul's lines too much because I
It's
call
too
him Paul.
little crimpies.
I would
hurt
never
my
do that.
fingers.
Yeah. Call him Paul holds.
That dosage where like Paul Robinson can crimp on the gnarliest crimps.
I was going to ask you a question about that, but I want to respect you guys' time. We shouldn't go too much longer. But I'll just ask like a final question.
I have a final question.
You have a final question too?
Two more
Yeah,
final
two more
questions.
We have two more,
Okay.
probably almost final questions. When you look back, or when you look at climbing and all of the things it has given you for both you guys, what comes to mind? Like, how has it informed your life? How has it changed you? How has it made you a better person? How has it sometimes made you a worse person? What are the things that crop into your mind that climbing has like gifted you?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is just like a massive appreciation for nature, in the regard that like I've seen climbing areas get closed, I've seen climbing areas get opened, I've seen what the Buttermilks looked like in 2004, I've seen what the Buttermilks looks like now, and it's just it's given me an appreciation of this like kind of natural world, and you know, obviously maybe it's made me a little grumpier at times because I kind of have seen like how climbing's evolved, but at the same time, you know, knowing what these areas were like and kind of trying to be as good of a steward as I can to the climbing world so that we can continue to have areas look like they did in the past, and so that kids growing up now can appreciate nature like I did growing up, I think is.
Do you feel like that's a part of your responsibility as a professional climber?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's.
I don't think everybody does. So that's why
no,
I'm
no.
asking.
I mean, I think obviously
Like
the world would be a lot better of a place if everyone took that as a responsibility, which obviously they don't. But I'd say like professional climber, non-professional climber, like everyone should make that their responsibility. It's very sad that they don't.
Yeah.
Just that your voice is stronger than my voice, is stronger than Feedy's voice. We need people like you out there being advocates.
Yeah, of course, and
And using your
and you know,
platform.
I mean,
That's
my
exactly
voice
right.
is minute in comparison to someone like Honold or something like that, and I think what he's doing is
it's
amazing.
great.
Yeah, it's incredible, and so yeah, I mean, the little bit that I can do, obviously, I think that that's very important,
awesome.
and I think, you know, if someone sees me pick up a piece of trash at the crag, I think hopefully that'll go a long way.
I think it does.
Yeah, because it is tough, you know. I mean, like I've talked with the Access Fund about different like initiatives and stuff like that, and like how do you portray that like in a film? Like you can't just have like me going around picking up trash. Like everyone's like, dude, this is so cool.
The fucking movie is terrible.
Yeah, exactly. No one wants to see that,
No.
you know. And it's like I think it's like just living that rather than just like making some dumb movie about like how you don't litter is much more valuable. And if you see it, just be like, dude, like what, like why are you throwing your tape on the ground, or like, you know, just like not calling someone out in the sense that like you're being like an asshole to them, but like more just like kind of calling them out, you know, just dude, like what are you doing?
teaching.
Because
There's a nice way to go.
yeah,
about
there's
it.
a nice way to go about it, but at
absolutely.
the same time too, I think like at the end of the day, like you kind of have to be a little bit hard, because if you're not, like they're just gonna go and do it like the next day, and like if you make them feel like, oh wow, like yeah, okay, like that does kind of make sense, and like, you know, maybe their reaction was a little bit strong, but if it's warranted.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
kinda-
I mean, just things like saying, listen, you just threw your tape on the ground. Let's say they're at the Buttermilks on March 15th. Like this week, they're going to be 15,000 climbers here.
Yeah.
If every single person
Yeah.
throws a crash pad on a bush, or leaves their tick, or throws a piece of tape on the ground, or a cigarette butt,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be
Oh, yeah.
15,000 cigarette butts and 200 bushes that are destroyed.
Yeah.
There's simple things like that. Like show
yeah.
there's a scope that we're talking about here with climbing like exploding exponentially.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
That's a good
to
answer.
touch on that, it was like there is a fun video that Paul and I made where we carried like a 40-pound tire
Yeah, I saw
out of
that.
Lincoln Lake, and we had fun with it. You know, the whole time I was taking my turn, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to jog up the hill and film you do this," and blah 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 blah. And like we had some climbing, we made it fun, and like we got a lot of positive response to it.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, thanks for carrying out that
Yes.
tire. Like we found this tire, and like it was." You know, all of our idea, like this needs
Yeah.
to come out today.
And that's
And
not
we're like,
climbing trash. That's not a climber that did that.
No,
of
no,
course
of
not.
course.
Yeah, there's a lot of trash down there, and that was the whole point of it. And you know, again, using the platform and just being like, you know, Paul's a known climber, and like his YouTube channel is what heavily followed. So like, if that even inspired 10 people to be like, oh wow, well, if I see a tire down at Lincoln, I'm gonna carry that out because I want to be
Yeah.
like that. Like that's cool.
Or a side
like-
view mirror.
I'm
Something
like,
easy.
good luck.
Yeah.
That tire was like 40 pounds and from like the 1940s.
You can.
It took
if
us
you-
forever.
Everybody who's listening, if you find a tire down there, you can pay Fullerton $15 an hour. It'll take that thing out of there.
2021.
Okay, $20 an hour.
Yeah, this guy won't work for less than 20.
What about you, Jeremy? What's
what was
the
valuable?
thing that climbing has given you? Not that you're grateful for, but like how has it informed your life?
I mean, as cliche as it sounds, like half of the reason that I climb is, I mean, you guys see me in the social settings.
Mm-hmm.
I just love to just chat with people and like make these connections. And like, obviously this first connection that we have with people is climbing, but like, I love to like just get deep and just be like, I actually want to get to know you.
Yeah.
And like people joke and they're like, dude, you're like the mayor of Lincoln Lake. How do you know everyone at Lincoln Lake, for instance?
The mayor of
The mayor of Lincoln Lake.
When we went to Roy, I forget we were at the Jumbles or something,
Yeah.
and I saw Jeremy there. I'm like, "Hey man, how's it going?" He's like, "Just I gotta say hi to these 25 other people here." Literally.
Paul's always like, dude, what the heck?
Well, yeah. Anytime he invites me to go climbing, my very first question is, "Who else is coming?"
I'm like, oh, it's like
I don't even care
600
who it is.
people.
I just want to know like the numbers.
Yeah. I'm just a social butterfly, and like that whole aspect that like you're just out there and you can just be a social butterfly. Like yesterday I was just at Lincoln Lake chilling until like 5 p.m. until my boulder went into the shade, and I was just like running around. I'm like, hey guys, they're like, come on down, hang out. I'm like, okay. And I like hiked like 6 miles that day just so I could say hi to everyone. By the time I get to my project, I'm like, I'm really tired.
I'm never gonna say
My
this.
throat's really sore. I
Yeah.
can't even climb right now. But yeah, I mean, the whole social aspect and just, I don't know, just being in the community and being a part of the community and
Yeah.
embraced in the community is like, as cliche as it sounds, I just love that feeling of just like,
It's a tribe.
I always get goosebumps on this podcast. I don't know why.
Yes,
It's happening
that's a
again.
good sign, I think.
It's happening again.
But right, Feedy.
Well, I'm sad. I should have fucking asked my question first.
What was yours?
It's super lame compared to that one.
What kind of jog do you use? Bison. See you later.
What's your favorite color?
I will ask it, I guess, but I
Yeah,
was just
do.
curious, Paul. Lately, it seems like V16 is becoming very common. Being put up super frequently now.
Oh boy. How am I going to answer this
And-
one today?
boy. Just end it there. Just end it there. You don't want there.
I remember like 3 years ago, it was like such a big deal to like put up a V16 and no one was doing it. And they're talking about grade inflations, all these blog posts, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just wondering, like, are these boulders actually harder or like, are they just finally letting the ceiling just go? I don't know.
That's a good question.
Like, are
This is
they
a good
accepting
question,
that
Paul.
there are boulders harder than V15 and V15 isn't just this gray zone that goes on forever?
Yeah, I mean that in the 2010 to 2016 time period, it kind of seemed like that. It
Yeah.
kind of did
Yeah.
seem like V15 was just never going to end.
I remember when it was solidified, kind of like 2010 to 2014.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my god, these 16s are going to be awesome. You're like checking your watch. You're like, oh, these climbers are pretty lazy or weak. I don't know what's going on here.
I think we could go on for an hour about this one.
Paul and I talk about this a lot. Actually.
Really?
It's a running
I
joke,
mean-
but we won't go there.
There's so many ways to answer it. One, I would hate to, and I would never comment on a climb that I've never tried
Yes.
before. I mean, because that's just unfair to the first ascensionist. And having done lots of first ascents myself,
Yes.
you know, I know I've heard people like watch a video of my climb and then say it didn't look that hard, and you're like, okay, well, like that's really not fair.
Yeah.
So I would never.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's very, very unfair and to the first ascensionist. But in that regard, I think that there are so many very strong climbers now that I think's helping a lot with kind of furthering the kind of the grade range. Because I mean, if you go back in time, right, you had Fred Nicole, right?
Yes.
So there was, at that point, there was kind of one.
Yes.
So if Fred called something V15, what, like, you know, he was climbing with his wife. But you know, like, she wasn't going to do it. So it was like, well, Fred did another V15 today. And
Or in 96, he climbed the first 14.
yeah, exactly. Like, no one was going to touch
Insane.
these climbs.
No.
So it was kind of like, oh, like, Fred's just kind of like this. The grade ranges from like V13 and harder was just kind of like, well, to Fred, this is how it felt,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like if you had your own grading system,
100% accurate.
like if I just had like P1 to whatever, you know, like something that maybe is graded V13 might feel like P16 to me.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
It doesn't, you know, but then all of a sudden, then you've got Dave and Chris coming along, right? That's kind of like the next step. So then Dave and Chris are like kind of doing first ascents and maybe repeating some of Fred's stuff. But again, you have this very interesting situation where maybe not the same weight, but they're all very similar in terms of like their reach and their height. Okay. So that, yes, weight has something to do with it and power and everything like that. But at the end of the day, a lot of these boulders that are really difficult, it's these height ranges, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the game, for instance, is a perfect example. Like John, Daniel, and Carlo are all the exact same height, right? So if you're taller than that, the game gets really much more difficult.
Yeah.
Ah.
So Jimmy doing the game is, you know, very extremely impressive. But anyway, so like kind of going back. So now you've got 3 people. Fred's kind of like starting to kind of phase out a little bit. Chris and Dave are coming in, and again, same height.
Yeah.
Then after them, now you have like Daniel, myself, and at that point, that, you know, that's kind of it, right?
Yeah,
You've
it
got a
seems
couple
like it.
Europeans that are really strong, a couple like Daiko Yamada and these other guys that are really strong. And so now this kind of like
Christian Core in Fred's age,
yeah,
too.
exactly. Christian Core.
He
Yeah,
was like
kind
the
of
other
like
one
the in
with Fred.
between. Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously I'm missing people, but
Yeah.
you know, in general, again, another person very much in that like 5'10", 5'11" height range.
Yeah.
And so now you've got like the Dai and Daniel and then myself, but you still have a small pool to choose from.
Yes.
But now you're starting to see like a slightly wider range of sizes. And so Daniel puts up the game, and then maybe, I don't know, Dave puts up something like the island, right?
Yep.
Very
Yeah.
reachy. Like, I don't think Daniel could do the island because I'm not sure he could span
Yeah.
the moves, right? So, but then you take everyone else, like let's just say Fred in his prime, Chris in his prime, myself in my prime, like the island is a very feasible goal to obtain. But then you take all of us and you put us on the game, and like now all of a sudden, like we can't do the game.
Yeah.
But like, why can one person do the game, but 5 people do the island? And so you've got this like very weird thing.
Yeah.
And then now, you know, you've got more people. Like now you've got Jimmy, and you've got like all these other super strong kids. And then like this very small band of people that all fit within this very kind of like similar size range is just getting wider. You've got like Jan Hoyer, who's like 6'3", right? Massive, right? And then you've got Alex Puccio, who's like 5'2". And so that's like with Jan's reach, it's probably about 1.5 foot.
Yeah. Completely different.
Of difference.
Yeah.
And so what I think that's done is what initially happened was you had a massive amount of downgrading, because the original people that came in were like, well, there's only a couple V15s to even kind of like compare this to. So sure, it's V15 or whatever, you know, like Dreamtime or
Burn Zangirl.
yeah, Burn Zangirl, exactly. Like Burn comes and does Dreamtime, and he's like, yeah, that's V15. You know, Fred put it up, and then like some other Chris comes and Dave does it and those guys do it and they're all like, yeah, it's V15. And then all of a sudden you start to get this like base of these other people who are like, oh, well, this doesn't feel like V15. It kind of feels like more like the V14 that I did. And then there's like more climbs and more climbs and more climbs. And then certain climbs fit other people. And then rather than like one person being able to do the game, now there's 4 people that have done the game. Because like, you know, back when Daniel did it, there was probably only like 2 people that maybe could do it.
Seriously.
But like now, I mean, if you take those like all like those Japanese bros, like you could probably bring them there and they'll run train on it.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Yes.
So and so, because they fit into that so
Which Dai
perfectly,
just
and
did, yeah.
and for some of them, no, it was the other guy. Dai didn't. Daisuke didn't. The other guy did,
right.
but it doesn't matter.
Japanese bro.
Ray,
Doesn't matter.
yeah, exactly, right. And so I think that kind of spurred this like massive downgrade thing, because if you know, one of those guys put up one and like it fit someone's style, then all of a sudden they were like, oh, well, this is easier than something else I did, so I'm going to downgrade it. And then people started to kind of started to realize recently that like with social media that big numbers are a commodity.
Indeed.
And
the commodity, I would say, in
exactly.
bouldering.
And I mean, if you put 16 next to like a video, it's going to get a lot of views. And so I think that people are a little trigger happy to give climbs V15, V16, because I mean, honestly, like 8a.nu is such an interesting kind of like catalyst for all of this, because it really, what 8a.nu picks up on is what people call climbs. If you do something that's super, super, super hard and you call it V15, there's a 50-50 chance that 8a.nu is going to write about it. Okay? If you do something that's really, really hard for you and you're like, well, if I call this 16, it's going to get a lot more
100%,
publicity than if I call this 15. Because there's no like real repercussion if like something gets downgraded. Sure, like if you call it V16 and like someone comes and calls it V10, like, like there's going to be an issue. But like a V16 getting downgraded to a V15,
it's like
I mean, yes, there are many of these V16s I haven't tried, but I imagine that will be the case in the future. Because like, you know, we will kind of create like where the cap is for V15 and it's probably been created, and I'm sure some of these V16s will remain V16, but like, you know, it's just interesting to see like one climb versus another climb. Like take the Sleepwalker one in Las Vegas, like that's the most repeated V16 in the world. It got put up this season and it's been done like 4 times. So you're like, well,
I know,
well,
it's so different.
It's really interesting. So like, well, like, you know, do they truly believe it's V16? Did they call it V16 because they thought that it would bring more publicity, or did they not want to hurt Jimmy's feelings? Like there's so much that goes into it. I think that it's just interesting because you've got,
I remember Sleepwalker.
yeah, you've got this very kind of like tight-knit community of people that can climb that hard, and there's so much that kind of like goes into a grade when, like, you know, I mean, people downgrade for spite. People keep grades because they don't want to lose a friendship. It's like, and that's really what's kind of interesting about climbing. And then also too, you have this first ascensionist that's like, well, I mean, call something V14, you're a chump. Why'd you even try it?
What a sissy.
Yeah.
I know.
Did that take you more than 15 minutes?
Oh my God.
That's what it is now.
I am so glad I'm not in that club.
No. Exactly. And so like 8B plus on the sidebar of 8A.nu is just like, well, 24 hours went by and like some other one did something and like some World Cup results came up and like no one even saw that you did like a really cool climb.
Yeah. And to touch on that, it's like, I feel like people like kind of like to throw out these like huge numbers like V16, and by the time it does maybe get downgraded or something, it's already gotten all this publicity, and then all of a sudden like 3 people
Exactly.
repeat it, they're like, oh, actually it's V15. It's like, oh, well, you know, they've already had their spotlight and everything like that. So like they've already
Yeah.
gotten the point across, or like
Oh,
made
yeah.
their spotlight
Oh,
a
yeah.
reality. And it's just like,
Because like by the
it's
time
just
it gets
social media at
downgraded,
this
like
point. Yeah.
it's like again like the majority
It's
of people that
months,
are going to
years.
see it aren't even going to, you know, you call V16, 200,000 people see it. The next guy comes along, calls it V14, 30,000 people see it, and like the 170,000 people, like they're no wiser.
Until it gets downgraded to V10, and then
No.
it's like 700,000 people see
Well,
that.
yeah, but also too, I mean, this isn't like a new concept. I mean,
Yeah.
not to throw like Bernd Zongerel is a great climber, has always been a great climber, but this has been something that has been going on for over a
Yes.
decade. I mean, Bernd Zongerel is like the epitome of this. I mean, back in the day, he was calling things V15 and V16 before 2010 in these like super remote places that like no one would ever go to, and then it would get this massive publicity. And then nowadays, like people go out there and climb these climbs, and like they're getting massively downgraded.
Yeah.
And like obviously, like when something gets massively downgraded, there was either a massive beta mistake or it was overgraded for a reason.
Yeah.
And I jokingly
Wow.
did that the other day on one of my posts. I was like,
Yes!
there's like this V10 dyno that I've tried like 25 sessions. I'm like, V15, blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm sure half of those people were just like liking it. They're like, oh my God, V15, V15. Like half of those likes where I'm sure
yeah.
they don't even know the climb. And I'm like jokingly doing
It
that
probably
to,
got a
like-
lot of likes.
It got a lot of likes.
Okay, what's really funny is before you guys came over, Dave was like, "Yeah, I saw Jeremy's out there trying a V15." And
I was like, that's
Yeah, it
awesome.
worked. It worked.
No, if I truly, I mean, I
That's a
didn't.
V10.
Yeah, he's like, no, dude, he's joking. That's a V10. I was
Yeah.
like, what a sucker.
So,
Yeah.
some people were like, "Wow, like you really upgraded that one." I was like, "Grades are personal."
Yes, I saw that comment. I saw people saying like, dude, why are you upgrading that? And I thought you said I always upgrade before I send something or something like that. I was like,
Dude,
This
there's
is
some people that are
awesome.
like dead serious, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
I
you
just
gotta
like
just stone
troll
cold.
back. I'm just like, whatever.
oh my god,
I'm
well,
just
that was
here to
pretty
mess with him.
embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, he's getting really strong.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this is so cool. I can't believe Jeremy's
We're
gonna
gonna.
send a V15.
That's the first question.
Numbers,
exactly.
numbers get likes.
Yeah.
It's
True.
true. Numbers get views.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
bouldering.
insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part and parcel of
Mm-hmm.
our sport.
It's kind of insane. Yeah.
That'll always be a problem with trying to put a label on something that is so subjective.
Yeah.
It's like you can't like you were saying, everyone has a different metric.
I love
And-
that about climbing.
Yeah.
Like that's one of my favorite things about how one of our tall friends can just cruise something, and it's hard for us.
Yeah.
And then in the exact opposite way, one of us short dudes can like just crush through it, and the tall guy's like, "This climb sucks."
Yeah.
Like sour grapes. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
it's always
it
fun
really
climbing
is.
with Paul because he's like the opposite style that I am. So
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, try this crimpy thing." And I'm like, "No, try this compress." I mean, he's well stronger than I am, so like
Yeah.
he can honestly do most of the things that I'm struggling on anyway. But it's like an interesting. Like he had brought up like it's not only body size but like technique and like he's better at crimping. I'm better at pinching. Like
It's a huge strength versus power
Yeah, it's a weird
thing
thing.
too. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? If you
it's
have
a weird thing.
power, everybody's strong.
mm-hmm.
But if you have power, that changes the game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like a ton of compression power to like
Whoa,
Lunch or-
Schulte style.
sorry,
Schulte.
Schulte style.
My ear.
All right, we've gone a long time.
Yeah.
Um,
That was fun.
How long? 2 hours?
I don't know.
I haven't
Let's
even
take-
looked at it.
Let's take a look. I can't see it. Holy shit! 2.5 hours.
I thought you got charged for like going
I
over
do.
an hour.
I'm gonna have to pay extra for sure. For
We
this
can
one.
make it into 2 podcasts.
Never.
Oh.
I don't believe in that shit,
Oh.
man. I like to torture the audience with 2.5
Nah.
hour interviews. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that
of
was
course.
awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
All right.
Adios.
Justice don't get my respect now. Some say my heart, it's bleeding out of my chest. If I had to lean one way, I'd probably
Wowee zowie. Holy smokes.
Big
Can
time,
you believe
man.
it?
Big time.
Seriously big time. I can't believe Paul, to our discredit, came onto this little podcast. It
What was he
so-
thinking?
What was he thinking?
Joining Bumblefuck Nation over here.
Dude, bumblefucks.
Rise up! No, well, we want to thank Paul and Jeremy so much for making the trek from Boulder to Denver,
Yeah.
coming to my little abode.
Yeah.
Me and Feedy don't live together,
No.
although we're
We're
thinking about it.
We're thinking of we're talking.
Getting just maybe a cottage somewhere.
Remember my boundaries, Dave?
I'm sorry. Let's not talk about it
Yeah.
anymore. But we do want to say thank you so much to those guys. What a fantastic talk. Wow, that was like freewheeling.
Man, it felt it was like I felt so spoiled to be able to ask somebody like that whatever I kind of could, I guess, and he gave awesome answers. So
At the very end when you said, "Okay, I got one more question." And he
he's like,
it was a pretty straightforward but cool question, and he like gave a collegiate thesis. So I was like, "Oh my God,
Well,
dude, you have thought about this."
It made me so happy because it's like, oh my God, he's been wondering about this too, because he's like, what the heck's going on?
Jeremy started smiling when you asked that question.
It was so funny. I gotta be honest, I was a little bummed that like it was kind of later, and because I felt like realistically, I don't know, we just could have kept going, and there was definitely still a lot of questions to ask, but maybe that's for future.
Yeah, I also felt weird. I was like, hey, maybe we should wrap this up. I really want to respect your time. And then I looked at it and we were like 2.5 hours in. I'm like, oh, Jesus, I haven't respected your time at all, dude. I'm sorry.
I know, but that's how it should be. Like, you guys come, and if you tell us if you have to leave, otherwise we'll just
it'll keep going.
Keep going because we're having a good time.
Okay, speaking of respecting time, maybe we should respect our listeners' time.
Let's do it
right now and wrap this little puppy up.
This is a big boy puppy.
This is a big puppy.
Dave's gonna have to go to the temple of the podcast masters and beg for forgiveness because this podcast is over the limit again.
I'm gonna have to pay more money.
They're gonna mercilessly tear him apart, but
I gotta sit in front of the tribunal.
He's gonna sit in front of the tribunal. He's gonna have to run the gauntlet. He's gonna have to bring the torch from the upper realm.
It's the volcano.
The volcano
down. Where the pterodactyls live in there.
It's
fucking terrifying. You guys don't even know.
Yeah, every time it happens, I'm stressed out for Dave. I volunteer him because
nobody wants to go to Pterodactyl Island and go see the.
You know how I feel about fucking flying dinosaurs.
The pod tribunal.
I wouldn't be if it was normal ass dinosaurs. I wouldn't be scared, but it's flying. All right.
And just all the members of the tribunal are wearing those like plague masks.
The way they talk.
And their fucking amulets. When they put all their amulets on their chest together, that's what calls the pterodactyls. And you're usually like halfway up the volcano. I mean, are we respecting the time of our listeners?
No, but it's just surprising that podcasting is such a dark. It's so hard to.
Nobody knows.
Surprisingly complicated.
If any of you guys have podcasts out there. Boom, fist bump. See
You've
it, Pterodactyl Island, Holmes.
Yeah, and to wrap it up, to finish it up, shoot us any comments, concerns, reviews,
queries.
I'm really bad at this part. Dave usually does it, so I'm just gonna keep stumbling.
Keep going.
I'm gonna keep.
Let's do it, baby.
Shoot comments, concerns to Thundercling podcast at gmail.com. Hell yeah, I got it right. And check us out on Instagram at the Thundercling. And I'm gonna shout us out because I think our Instagrams are valuable sources of life.
Is that right?
I am.
Okay.
It's Fitzel Q for Dave and
God, you're calling out our personal ones?
Yeah.
Ah, sure. I don't care.
You know what? I'm tired of hiding behind Mike.
Your nom de plume. Which is also Feedy.
Yeah. And last thing I want to say is, once again, thanks to everybody who keeps leaving these fantastic reviews and feedback we keep getting. It's super encouraging.
Yeah.
And it goes a huge way for us continuing the podcast because...
Yeah, if you have the time and wherewithal to rate and review on iTunes, that's great. If you don't, we'll fucking send you to Pterodactyl Island. You'll take my place in front of the tribunal next time.
Yeah, actually, we're taking applicants for an intern to run the tribune.
We'll go on the boat with you to the island, but there's no way I'm climbing that volcano again. And my battle axe is broken, so I can't possibly kill any more pterodactyls.
Must be able to climb 5.
It's like 5'8" only.
5'8" only. It's not that bad, but it's a little chossy rock, and be able to battle demons and pterodactyls. It's not a big deal. All right.
And you can't be scared of the tribunal, especially when they whap their amulets together and the light and sound comes.
Yeah, just like Jeremy, they detect fear.
Hey, y'all.
All right, thank you.
2 weeks. See you at Pterodactyl Island.
secret you may not know. Man, it's so creamy and cold. Climbers snort it like blow. To climb the rocks, climb the rocks, climb the rocks, climb the rocks. Poor Robinson, it is said, eats mayonnaise with a slice of bread. His fingers turn to raptor talons and he shreds the rock.
Shreds the rock.
Shreds the rock. Squirt it on your elbows, rub it in your eyes. Mayonnaise, it's a great surprise. It's life hack when you don't realize how to climb the rock. Climb the rock. Climb the rock. Climb the rock. Paul Robinson, you are strongest climber I've seen today. Fingers as strong as mayonnaise. Mayonnaise. Paul Robinson, you are strongest climber by far. Fingers as strong as mayonnaise. Got a tambourine. It's in my chalk bag, it's in my shoes. He's always mixing it with his booze. Tummy sailing on a condiment cruise. Helps him climb the rocks. Climb the rocks. Climb the rocks. Climb the rocks. Rub it on your butt and sit on ham. Bread on your head and pickles for your toes. Place a tomato in your belly button hole. Human ham sandwich.
Yeah, sandwich.
Human ham sandwich. Now, I don't know if it's true, but frankly, man, neither do you. Nothing here can ever be proved. Paul Robinson, you are strongest climber by far. Fingers as strong as mayonnaise. My God! Paul Robinson, you are strongest climber by far. Fingers as strong as mayonnaise. Fingers as strong as mayonnaise. Ow! Fingers as strong as mayonnaise. What? It's a condiment. Fingers is as strong as mayonnaise. Tambourine.
I'm more of a ketchup guy myself. if I'm
It's
being honest.
mayonnaise.
Oh shit.